Excellencies, Head of State and Government, Your Excellency Ban Ki-moon, former UN Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening from Hanoi, our capital city of peace and friendship. Warmest greetings from myself and from the many representatives of our ministries, agencies, and the diplomatic missions representing the members of the Council who are joining on this important event. I am very honored to chair this VTC high-level open debate. As the President of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam and the first Vietnamese president to preside over a council meeting, Vietnam is deeply aware of the honor bestowed upon us as we assume the presidency of the Council and the immense responsibility entailed with it. Vietnam is an active and responsible member of the international community. Therefore, we endeavor to contribute to the common efforts to advance multilateralism, uphold the UN Charter and international law, strengthen conflict prevention and resolution, and promote the role of regional organizations in maintaining regional and international stability and security. With that, the VTC high-level open debate of the Security Council is called to order. The next item is the adoption of the agenda. The provisional agenda of the meeting is enhancing cooperation between the United Nations and regional organizations in enhancing confidence building and dialogue in conflict prevention and resolution. The agenda is adopted. The third item is the list of briefer. In accordance with Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the following briefers to participate in the meeting. His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, former Secretary General of the United Nations. His Excellency Mr. Dato Erywan Pehin Yusof, the Second Minister for Foreign Affairs and Brunei Darussalam as Chair of ASEAN. Her Excellency Ms. Anne Lind, the Minister for Foreign Affairs of Sweden, Chairperson in Office of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. His Excellency Mr. Ahmad Aboud Gate, Secretary General of the League of Arab States. His Excellency Mr. Olok Skol, Head of the Delegation of the European Union to the United Nations. Her Excellency Ms. Fatima Khiari Mohammed, Permanent Observer of African Union to the United Nations. It is so decided.
Sau đây, HĐBA LHQ.
The Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. I wish to draw the attention of the Council members to document S/2021/297, a letter dated 26 March 2021 from the Permanent Representative of Vietnam to the United Nations, addressed to the Secretary General, transmitting a concept paper on the item under consideration. I wish to warmly welcome the Secretary General, heads of state, prime ministers, distinguished ministers, and other high-level representatives. Your presence today underscores the importance of the subject matter under consideration. The Council has before it the text of the statement by the President on behalf of the Council on the subject of today's meeting. I thank the Council members for their valuable contributions to this statement. In accordance to the understanding reached among the members of the Council, I shall take it that the members of the Security Council agree to the statement, which shall be issued as a document of the Security Council under symbol S/PRSD/2021/9. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, Excellencies, I'd like to thank the Vietnamese Presidency for organizing this open debate and for the opportunity to brief the Security Council on what has been a key priority since taking office: cooperation between the United Nations and regional and sub-regional organizations. This cooperation has grown exponentially since 1945. Today, it encompasses preventive diplomacy, mediation, counterterrorism, preventing violent extremism, peacekeeping, peacebuilding, promoting human rights, advancing the women, peace and security agenda, combating climate change, and since last year, the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As we look to the future, fostering dialogue and building confidence across all these areas is central to our common work. Mr. President, our investment in institutionalizing partnerships has translated to more effective engagements before, during, and after crisis with concrete operational results. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, for example, the United Nations is working with the European Union, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and the Council of Europe to support local efforts to advance dialogue, trust building, and reconciliation. In Sudan, the UN supported the African Union and Ethiopia in facilitating negotiations that resulted in the establishment of a civilian-led transitional government, with women and young people playing a prominent role. Together, through our hybrid operation in Darfur, the United Nations and the African Union also proved technical, advisory, and logistical support to the negotiations that culminated in the signing of the HĐBA Peace Agreement in October 2020, before jointly presenting options for a new UN political mission, which led to the establishment of the United Nations Integrated Transition Assistance Mission in Sudan. As we continue to support Sudan in its efforts towards democratic governance and an inclusive society, our collaboration remains essential. In Mali, following a military coup, the United Nations and the African Union supported the efforts led by the Economic Community of West African States towards the formation of a transitional government in September 2020. Since then, we have been working closely with Malian stakeholders to support the implementation of the transition roadmap and action plan. In supporting the Libyan-led, Libyan-owned dialogue process and transition, the United Nations is working closely with the African Union, the League of Arab States, and the European Union, including in the context of the Berlin process and the Quartet. We are working together to support the implementation of the ceasefire, and we are closely cooperating with the African Union in the African Union's initiative to support the Libyan authorities in promoting national reconciliation. And in Bolivia, close cooperation between the United Nations, the European Union, and the Episcopal Conference of Bolivia played an important part in finding a peaceful solution to the crisis following the 2019 general elections and build confidence ahead of the general elections held last October. These examples show that our ability to work together and build on our complementarities allows us to more effectively support member states in managing complex political transitions and in finding sustainable solutions to political challenges. Mr. President, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations is an important part of this picture. Since its founding, ASEAN has played an important role in its regions through diplomacy, conflict prevention, and peace building in conflict situations. The comprehensive partnership between ASEAN and the United Nations, well established since 2011, has grown across the peace and security spectrum, as well as social and economic development. Under our technical cooperation agreement, we have provided capacity-building support in the areas of mediation and dialogue, ceasefires, and gender inclusion. Today, ASEAN's role is more crucial than ever as the region faces an urgent crisis in Myanmar. I've repeatedly called on the international community to work collectively and through bilateral channels to help bring an end to the violence and the repression by the military. United Nations cooperation with ASEAN in this regard is vital. The situation requires a robust international response grounded on a unified regional effort. I urge regional actors to leverage their influence to prevent further deterioration and ultimately find a peaceful way out of this catastrophe. My special envoy is currently in the region. She stands ready to resume dialogue with the military and the other actors and to contribute to a return of Myanmar to the democratic path and to peace and stability. Excellencies, strengthening United Nations partnerships with regional and sub-regional organizations is an integral part of my vision for a networked multilateralism. Despite the pandemic, my biannual high-level interactive dialogue with heads of regional organizations was held virtually last November. 23 organizations participated at the highest level and helped to institutionalize our collaboration and work better together in crisis contexts. I'm committed to pursuing an even closer engagement to promote confidence building and dialogue in conflict prevention, management, and resolution. We can only address our current and future challenges, including those exposed and heightened by COVID-19, through ambitious and coordinated multilateral action. Thank you.
I thank the Secretary General for his important statement. I take note of the critical contribution and hope that you shall continue to lead the UN's effort to bolster cooperation with regional organizations for conflict prevention and resolution. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon.
Ông Nguyen Xuân Phúc, President of Vietnam and President of Security Council, His Excellency Secretary General Antonio Guterres, distinguished members of the Council, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor and privilege to speak to you today. My deep gratitude go to Vietnam for their initiative in holding this timely, high-level, open debate, as well as for extending an invitation for me to brief the Council today. Taking this opportunity, I extend my deep congratulations to His Excellency President Quốc on his inauguration on April 5th and wish you a great success in the future. My special thanks go to Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the other distinguished briefers who have shared their insight and expertise on this important topic. Mr. President, today, the international community collectively faces a plethora of monumental challenges. These include, but are not limited to, an ongoing and deadly global pandemic, both long-standing and emerging conflict and security crisis, and the deepening climate emergency. At the same time, the United Nations and multilateralism more largely has faced immense difficulties over the past few years in holistically addressing such crises, as some countries have unfortunately prioritized nationalism, isolationism over cooperation and partnership. Under this troubling backdrop, the role of cooperative regional organizations, as envisioned under Chapter 8 of the UN Charter, is all the more critical to help ensure the maintenance of international peace and security. Particularly, regional and sub-regional organizations have unique and prominent roles to play in enhancing dialogue and confidence building in conflict prevention and its resolution. In this context, I commend Secretary General Guterres' prioritization of prevention, and urge all members of this Council to scale up their support for his efforts in addressing the root causes of conflict and enhancing the humanitarian, development, and peace nexus. During my decade-long tenure as the Secretary General, I worked tirelessly to enhance cooperation between the United Nations and regional organizations with a view towards scaling up conflict prevention and resolution. I worked side by side with the ASEAN, AU, League of Arab States, OAS, European Union, OSCE, and other key regional organizations, including attending the majority of ASEAN, League of Arab States, and AU summit meetings during my time. As a result of their geographical proximity and intimate knowledge of local dynamics, regional and sub-regional organizations are also essential UN partners in providing only early warning assessment of atrocity crimes. Mr. President, I believe that today's Security Council debate is well-timed, as both the United Nations and its regional partners now have a fleeting window to cooperate through strong action to halt the ongoing atrocities in Myanmar and prevent the further escalation of violence. According to rights monitoring groups, over 700 people, including 50 children, have been killed by security forces since the February 1st military takeover of Myanmar. I condemn the brutal use of lethal forces against civilians and the detention of State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi and the President Win Myint, as well as thousands of protesters. The worsening situation in Myanmar represents a pivotal moment to showcase the utility of cooperation between the UN and its regional partners in maintaining peace and security and saving human lives. While serving as UN Secretary General, I was actively engaged on the situation in Myanmar and its democratic transition from the very start of my tenure. I'm still proud to have convened the group of friends of the United Nations Secretary General on Myanmar in 2007 that helped spark democratic opening of Myanmar. After the deadly cyclone Nargis caused unparalleled human sufferings in Myanmar in 2008, no one could engage with the military junta, and time was slipping to provide urgent humanitarian aid. Through concerted diplomatic efforts, I was able to gain entry to the country and scaled up UN humanitarian actions to the required level. I had a series of meetings with General Tan Sue and then Prime Minister General Thein Sein, who later became the president of Myanmar. That was only possible thanks to the ASEAN's full engagement in the process. Now, at a more decisive moment of need, I am sincerely appealing to ASEAN leaders to step up together with the United Nations to help the people and country of Myanmar. I have been myself exploring with the leaders in the region, as well as members of the Elders, a group of global leaders founded by Nelson Mandela, possible ways to help find the solution to this crisis. Based on this consultation, I recently made a request to Myanmar authorities for me to visit the country, to meet all parties and try to help de-escalate the situation and find the route toward constructive dialogue. Unfortunately, my request was not accept it. Myanmar authorities informed me that, quote, the proposed visit will not be convenient at this moment due to recent domestic situations, unquote. Mr. President and distinguished council members, to deal with the Myanmar situation, an effective and regional-led approach requires both unity and action. But ASEAN has so far been divided in its responses to the situation in Myanmar. The principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of sovereign states should not be used as a pretext for inaction in the face of serious human rights abuses. ASEAN must make it clear to the Myanmar military that the current situation is so grave that it cannot be regarded only as an internal matter. The military's use of lethal force and gross violation of human rights being perpetrated against the civilians are not compatible with the ASEAN Charter. These actions are clear violations of international law and constitute a threat to peace, security, and stability of the region. According to the news report, General Min Aung Hlaing of Myanmar will attend ASEAN Special Summit on Myanmar to be held in Indonesia on April 24th. I urge ASEAN leaders to take immediate and concerted actions at the summit. As a minimum, they should agree that a high-level ASEAN delegation will visit Myanmar to engage with all relevant parties. It is equally vital that the Security Council moves beyond statements to collective action, as has been stated by countries around the world. After ASEAN Special Summit, the Security Council should monitor the situation closely to take follow-up actions. The UN Security Council cannot neglect its basic obligation to prevent a situation from deteriorating in which so many innocent people are being killed. As a former Secretary General, I urge this Council to take immediate actions to halt the violence and bloodshed and initiate the process to restore peace and democracy in Myanmar. In particular, permanent members of the Security Council should focus their attention on action that can be taken to respond to the situation in Myanmar. The Security Council has the responsibility to protect Myanmar's civilian population in the context where the atrocities being committed may constitute crimes against humanity. The principle of R2P, responsibility to protect, should be in this context.
Brian, could we pause, please? Mr. President.
It is now more important than ever to pursue multilateral and multi-layered solutions to the security problems that we face, born out of robust partnership with the UN, its member states, and particularly regional organizations all working together. As regional conflict continue to both emerge and deepen, the UN can no longer deal with all of these crises on its own. This is why I believe the partnership approach can best bear fruit for both conflict prevention and resolution. Now is the time for this Council and its regional partners to not only act together, but act decisively to prevent the worst in Myanmar and beyond. I once again thank the Vietnam presidency for convening this high-level open debate and inviting me to brief the Security Council today. Again, I count on your strong leadership. Thank you for your attention and leadership. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon for his important statement and kind congratulations addressed to me. We take note of your valued contributions to the development of the partnership between the UN and regional organizations, especially ASEAN. It is our hope that in every position you would continue to promote dialogue and confidence building to prevent conflict in our world. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall now make a statement in my capacity as President of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. I thank the UN Secretary General and the former Secretary General of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, for your very insightful and comprehensive remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, trust, confidence, and dialogue laid a solid foundation for international relations. Rising from the ashes of sorrows of the Second World War, the UN has become the very symbol of our deep conviction and mutual trust in multilateralism and multi-tiered international cooperation. Guided by such faith, many regional organizations were established and have since thrived. Our briefers today, representing organizations from various regions, will give us an overall picture of their active contributions to conflict prevention and resolution and facilitation of dialogue, peace, and reconciliation processes. As an active ASEAN member, having just fulfilled its role as the 2020 ASEAN Chair, Vietnam takes great pride in ASEAN's success in building a region of peace, cooperation, trust, and dialogue, and a cohesive and responsive ASEAN community, striving toward an open, transparent, inclusive, and rules-based regional architecture. ASEAN has established a partnership with the UN and created several mechanisms and forums for political and security dialogues with other countries, including the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. In January 2020, Vietnam chaired the Council's open debate on cooperation between the UN and ASEAN in maintaining international peace and security. Setting confidence building and dialogue as priorities, ASEAN has been working with China to negotiate the establishment of the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea, with a view to maintaining peace, stability, maritime security, and safety in the South China Sea. ASEAN is also playing a central role in seeking adequate solution to help stabilize the situation in Myanmar through dialogue and reconciliation. In the 24th of April, ASEAN leaders will be hosting a special summit to discuss this important issue. Ladies and gentlemen, while peace, cooperation, and development continued as the prevailing trend and fervent aspirations of all countries and peoples, the world that we live in today is riddled with challenges. In the past 5 years, conflicts have taken away 500,000 lives across the globe. In 2020 alone, the world recorded 20 million refugees, over 50 million people displaced due to conflicts, and around 170 million in need of humanitarian assistance. These are the people who are left behind and call upon our Council to take action. Against major challenges such as COVID-19, natural disasters, severe climate change, border and territorial disputes and conflicts, frictions, and geostrategic competition, increased international unity is more crucial than ever. Yet, the paradox at present lies in our waning trust in one another and in multilateral institutions. The strengthening of unity is of great necessity, starting with the cooperation between the UN and the UNSC with regional organizations in our joint efforts to prevent and resolve conflicts through dialogue and confidence building. In this important debate, I would like to underscore three proposals. First, the interactions and complementarities between the UN and regional organizations are inherent. They are the two-way linkages to share knowledge and coordinate joint endeavors. The UN should take the lead in increasing cooperation activities and exchanges of experience and best practices in confidence building and dialogue to prevent conflicts. On the other hand, regional organizations should bolster cooperation with the UN, engage in dialogues and share experience in various forums to enhance capacity in preventing and resolving conflicts. Second, we should further promote the role of multilateralism and uphold the UN Charter and international law. For this is the most concrete and solid foundation to build trust and promote dialogues. Moreover, early conflict prevention requires inclusive and comprehensive solutions to address the root causes of conflicts, such as poverty, hunger, inequality, and violence. The international community should strive to fulfill the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and other global security and development strategies and initiatives led by the UN, paying greater attention and giving adequate assistance to developing countries who face serious resources constraints. On their part, regional organizations need to take comprehensive agendas and integrate the UN's development frameworks and initiatives into their national and regional development plans. They should also strive to narrow political, economic, and cultural gaps among themselves. In Southeast Asia, ASEAN is making every effort to fulfill the goal of building an ASEAN community united in politics, diverse in culture, connected in economy, and with increased cooperation with external partners by 2025. As an active ASEAN member, Vietnam has effectively placed COVID-19 under control, enjoy a high economic growth rate, and actively engage in international integration. Third, we need to continue enhancing cooperation between the UNSC and regional organizations through dialogue and cooperation frameworks and early warning mechanisms for volatilities. The UNSC needs to continue acknowledging and respecting the perspectives, role, and contributions of regional organizations. We also need to mainstream conflict prevention and resolution strategies via dialogue and confidence building in UN missions, and create favorable conditions for regional organizations to uphold their essential role. In response, regional organizations should further strengthen their proactive and leading role in preventing and resolving conflicts in accordance with international law and the UN Charter. This can only be achieved when each and every member state has strategic trust in each other and share a common political resolve. Ladies and gentlemen, Vietnam is honored to assume the presidency of the Security Council for the second term. With their aspiration to become a peaceful and prosperous nation, a reliable partner, and a responsible member of the international community, Vietnam remains steadfast in our foreign policy of independence, sovereignty, diversification, and multilateralization of relations, promoting international integration and actively contributing to the efforts of the UN and the UNSC. Faithful to our motto, Partnership for Sustainable Peace, Vietnam will spare no effort to strengthen the cooperation between the UN and regional organizations, including ASEAN, and elevate such ties for peace, security, and development around the world. Thank you. I resume my function as President of the Council. I now give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Kersti Kaljulaid, President of Estonia.
Mr. President, I extend my warm greetings to you and to the people of Vietnam. I also welcome former Secretary General Mr. Ban Ki-moon, as well as representatives from regional organizations. And also I'd like to say hello to Secretary General. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Secretary General Guterres. Excellencies, the COVID-19 pandemic has clearly demonstrated that you can overcome global challenges only through joint and coordinated action. Here, regional organizations play a crucial role, and the EU leads by example. European Union is the biggest donor to the COVAX facility, global initiative to ensure safe and effective vaccines for all the countries in the world. I also welcome the support by regional organizations to the United Nations Secretary General's call for a global ceasefire. Besides the strong partnership with the EU and OSCE, the UN Security Council has also annual consultations with the African Union Peace and Security Council, the League of Arab States, and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Regional and sub-regional organizations often know better how to mitigate tensions and to deal with the aftermath of bloody confrontations. They have a key responsibility in preventing violent conflicts and atrocity crimes. They can build pressure to stop atrocities and open the door for negotiations. And for that, they must not stay silent when freedoms are suppressed. There must be accountability between a state and the society. This is the only road to a less violent world. The unfolding tragedies in Belarus, Yemen, Syria, Myanmar are all clear proof of that. Entire world observes with pain the army killing its own citizens, including children, in Myanmar. Here the ASEAN has a critical role in pressuring the army to stop the atrocities. It is important that ASEAN will be able to organize a summit dedicated to the grave situation in Myanmar. Mr. President, drawing on the messages of our briefers today, it is also the democratic governance that reassures the peaceful coexistence of states. Multilateral cooperation founded upon the democratic debate, transparent information sharing, and confidence-building measures is a way towards more peaceful coexistence. It is for these universal values why democratic governance has been embraced across the world in every continent of the world. The number of the world population living in democracies has increased from 1 to 4 billion over the past 65 years. The European Union is recognized as one of the best examples of effective regional multilateral cooperation, and the EU is committed to multilateralism with the United Nations at its core. This method of diplomacy belongs to our DNA. The respect for territorial integrity and the prohibition of the use of force are fundamental principles of international law at the core of UN, EU, ASEAN, and other regional organizations. And yet, we are observing with deepest concern threats to use military force, also here in our Europe. We are witnessing increased military buildup by Russia along the Ukraine border and in the occupied Crimea. Most recently, Russia announced that under the pretext of military exercises, it will block parts of the Black Sea, namely the Kerch Strait, restricting the navigation of foreign military and official ships until October. The situation is aggravated by the fact that Russia does not engage in risk reduction and confidence-building measures in the OSCE. Russia failed to explain its military buildup along the borders of Ukraine and in occupied Crimea last week in OSCE. This runs counter to the letter and spirit of the OSCE confidence-building mechanisms, including in particular of the Vienna document, that is to address concerns and reduce risks. In conclusion, Estonia believes that multilateralism that we see in Europe born from the ashes of 2 world wars, can help to secure and keep peace through active cooperation with the UN and other regional organizations. So I do encourage all regional organizations to take a bigger role in securing regional stability and also work actively with the United Nations that is and remains the cornerstone of our multilateral world order and is a forum where everybody has a voice.
Bà Kalula quan trọng.
I thank Her Excellency Ms. Kalulai for her statement. Let me take this opportunity to express Vietnam's desire to strengthen the sound relations with Estonia bilaterally and multilaterally for peace, cooperation, and development. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, President of Kenya.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Nguyen Xuan Phuc, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me at the very foremost just take this opportunity to congratulate you, Your Excellency President Phu, on your recent election as President of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Indeed, your country's remarkable history has inspired Kenya and many nations around the world. I take this opportunity also to applaud you on your leadership and the leadership that Vietnam has shown in effectively combating the COVID-19 crisis. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Their Excellencies Antonio Guterres and His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, as well as the heads of regional organizations for their informative briefings. Mr. President, with nearly half of all global peace operations taking place on the African continent, the African Union has put the peace agenda high on its priority list and has indeed established several institutional structures to address conflict prevention as well as resolution. The Peace and Security Council of the African Union, which I am currently chairing, is a decision-making organ for the African Union for the prevention, management, as well as conflict resolution. Working in close collaboration with regional blocs such as the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, or the Africa Economic Community of West African States, the Council has facilitated a number of peace agreements and reduced the escalation of conflict in several countries. Regrettably, ladies and gentlemen, there are still too many conflicts brewing in Africa which require our concerted efforts to contain. And why is this so? Because conflict is destructive, it destroys lives and livelihoods, as well as erodes social economic gains that countries have made, and overall it deters our forward progress. And to this end, Mr. President, I want to propose that time has come to scale up our conflict resolution efforts, particularly here on the African continent. And I would like, Mr. President, to propose some 5 recommendations for your consideration. The first of these is the need to recognize and to support regional peacekeeping organs. This Security Council, and particularly the presidencies and penholders, should undertake more comprehensive consultations and build on regional efforts. History, and indeed experience, reminds us that the closer you are to a problem, the better you understand its complexity and its workable solutions. Regional and sub-regional organizations have a greater stake in the conflict and provide the proximity as well as the insights which are critical in conflict resolution. Secondly, we must do better in appreciating cross-border dimensions of conflict. For it is not enough to focus on a single file in the Council to the exclusion of neighboring countries. Resolving conflict should not shift the threat to neighboring countries, particularly when insurgent and terrorist organizations are part of the problem. The UN should indeed consult closely with neighboring states in their endeavors in various countries. Third, I believe we can do a better job in disarming, demobilizing, and reintegrating fighters. Returning fighters to lawful civilian life guarantees sustainable peace as well as successful post-conflict reconstruction. The UN should give this and treat it as a priority and become more innovative in the demobilization and reintegration of groups that have been ideologically derailed. Mr. President, Kenya has developed one of the most far-reaching disengagement and reintegration programs in Africa. Our disengagement program is nationwide, and it assists individuals newly recruited into violent extremism and others who are returnees from foreign battlefields. We have designed the program so that it is a platform that can offer capacity building and training to others. And to this end, we welcome the United Nations to support and make use of this facility. 4, without a competent government, fragile countries or those emerging from conflict will not secure peace and development. Therefore, the United Nations must be at the forefront in assisting countries that are emerging from conflict and develop a more competent and inclusive civil service. In this context, again, Kenya has provided such support to states in our region that appeal for our assistance. For example, our South Sudan Liaison Office, for example, has trained hundreds of public servants for South Sudan. The 5th point, Mr. President, is that we must do a better job at burden sharing. I greatly appreciate the assistance that responds to humanitarian crisis. The conflict resolution pillar must attract the same level of urgency if we are truly to bring cycles of violence to an end. Mr. President, we will only have a fit-for-purpose Security Council peacekeeping mandates in Africa if they have adequate as well as predictable funding through the United Nations assessed contributions. It is these that will protect peacekeepers, allow their missions to be fit for purpose, and enable quicker and more lasting successes. Mr. President, in conclusion, I stand eager to join hands with you to build a more ambitious collaboration between this Council as well as our regional and sub-regional organizations. I thank you.
I thank you, Senior Nita, for his words of congratulations. Vietnam welcomes the contribution of Kenya to the work of the continent, and the cooperation between the two countries at the bilateral and multilateral level contributing to stability and sustainable development, especially your 5 recommendations. Next, I would like to call upon Sexy Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Thank you, Mr. President. St. Vincent and the Grenadines thanks the briefers for their insightful comments, and we commend Vietnam for its leadership in initiating this debate on the enhancing of cooperation between the United Nations and regional, sub-regional organizations. This subject is of immediate relevance to my country in the context of a massive natural disaster against the backdrop of the many-sided challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and the predicted active Atlantic hurricane season that begins in 6 weeks' time. Please permit me a little latitude for a minute or two. Mr. President, for 11 days now, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been in the throes of a series of explosive volcanic eruptions on the island of St. Vincent. As a consequence, nearly 1/5 of the island's population has had to be evacuated to safer areas. A monumental challenge of humanitarian relief, including security considerations and recovery and reconstruction, face us. Without effective cooperation between our country, the United Nations, and our regional, sub-regional organizations, our life and living would be wholly unbearable. Without an enhancement of this cooperation, the relief effort would be stymied, and the prospects for our recovery and reconstruction would be dismal. The United Nations and its agencies have been actively at work, and the personal leadership of my friend, the Secretary General, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, has been outstanding. The Caribbean Community, CARICOM, the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, the Regional Security System, the HDUBA, the Association of Caribbean States, and their allied regional agencies have been at the forefront with their magnificent efforts. Still, much more is required to be done. Across our land, the faces of men and women are strained and anxious. They are hurting badly. The global community is being summoned to action to our aid in the name of humanity and in accord with the United Nations Charter. And the global community cannot allow itself to make haste slowly. Tomorrow, under the auspices of the United Nations, a global appeal fund for St. Vincent and the Grenadines would be launched. Be generous in your solidarity. Turning now, Mr. President, more specifically to conflict-affected settings, it has become a ringing truth that regional institutions in concert with the United Nations are often best suited to facilitate the pacific settlement of disputes through mediation, confidence building, observation and verification missions, and other measures to promote stability, build trust, and create an environment conducive to development. Indeed, any dispute that is likely to endanger international peace and security should first be addressed through these peaceful means with the assistance and participation of relevant regional arrangements as enshrined in the UN Charter. Mr. President, let us restate foundational principles. Security is, at its very core, a collective endeavor that can only be achieved as parties build trust and stable relationships. In this regard, lasting peace can never be imposed. It must emerge organically from among all relevant stakeholders. St. Vincent and the Grenadines believes that regional arrangements such as ASEAN, the African Union, and our own Caribbean Community CARICOM are often better placed to support peace processes than those entities that are far removed from the unique and specific histories, cultures, politics, and material circumstances of development. The Security Council is always required to lend its full support and encouragement to all regional mechanisms and refrain from any actions that may circumvent or undermine the legitimate role of regional bodies. We welcome the ongoing efforts of the Secretary General and his special envoys and special representatives to enhance the cooperation between the United Nations and various regional and sub-regional organizations. The convening platform of the Peace Building Commission also proves useful in providing a coherent, multi-stakeholder strategy to assist conflict-affected countries to overcome their challenges. Greater efforts must be made to enhance this comprehensive whole-of-system approach, and regional arrangements must be included at every step of the process. Mr. President, conflict prevention and resolution activities are most effective when they are complemented by targeted peace building and development initiatives that address the root causes of insecurity, improve lives and livelihoods, and bolster national ownership over peace processes. The norms and principles of sovereign equality, territorial integrity, and political independence ought always to serve as a guidepost for conflict prevention and resolution. In all situations, the mandates of regional organizations ought never to be subverted by hegemonic self-interest or eroded through unilateral action, but always to serve as platforms to enhance sovereignty and promote solidarity and cooperation. Still, Mr. President, none of these precepts ought ever to blind us to egregious abuse or violation of elemental human rights and the consequential need for appropriate collective action through the Security Council. Mr. President, I close respectfully with a reminder. Please help St. Vincent and the Grenadines in its midnight hour of need. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Gonçalves for his valuable remarks. I wish to offer my condolences to your government and your people for the losses and damage caused by the volcanic eruption of La Souvière. I hope that you will soon recover from this calamity and go back to your normal life. I now give the floor to Excellency Mr. Wang Yi, Special Representative of President Xi Jinping, State Councilor, and Foreign Minister of the People's Republic of China.
Mr. President, Secretary General Guterres, dear colleagues, China supports Vietnam's initiative of convening this high-level open debate. I welcome President Nguyen Xuan Phoc's chairing of the debate and thank Secretary General Guterres for his briefing. Cooperation with regional organizations by the UN is an express requirement of the UN Charter and an important manifestation of multilateralism. As the world struggles against the shockwaves from the profound changes in the international landscape compounded by the pandemic, we face pronounced challenges to international peace and security and complex interplay of traditional and non-traditional security issues. This calls for joint efforts from both the regional and the global levels, requires the UN and regional organizations to work together to assess the power past draw lessons, carry forward fine traditions, strive for creativity, uphold multilateralism, and contribute to world peace and global development. In this context, I wish to share a few thoughts. First, it is crucial to observe the norms and cement the foundation for peace. The whole body of these norms is the UN Charter, the bedrock of cooperation between the UN and regional organizations. In conducting peace operations, regional organizations need to observe the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, respect sovereignty and territorial integrity, and avoid interfering in other countries' internal affairs. The peaceful settlement of dispute should be pursued whenever possible, and the willful imposition of sanctions must be rejected, especially the use or threat of force. The status of the Security Council as the core of the international collective security mechanism must be upheld, and self-centered practices must be abandoned. We must advocate openness and inclusiveness. Geopolitics, bloc politics, and exclusive clans for ideological confirmation must be rejected. Only by following these principles can regional organizations' efforts succeed and sustain. Second, it is imperative to prioritize prevention and diversify the tools for upholding peace. The UN and regional organizations need to promote common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security, and diversify the toolkit for peace with preventive diplomacy as the priority. Peace talks should be encouraged to narrow differences through dialogue, resolve disputes through mediation, and find a political settlement of hotspot issues. It is also important to make good use of UN peacekeeping operations, uphold the principle of impartiality, and respect the will and the choice of the people of the countries concerned. Enforcement operations must be authorized by the Security Council. Third, it is important to complement each other and create a synergy for peace. The UN and its Security Council need to serve as effective coordinators and provide more assistance to regional organizations, which in turn should leverage their own strengths to help address regional disputes in a way suited to regional realities. The two sides could share experience and best practices and engage in flexible and pragmatic cooperation. In recent years, the UN has been moving in the right direction by stepping up coordination with regional organizations such as the AU and ASEAN. The UN should help Africa enhance its own capacity for peacekeeping, stability, and counterterrorism, and accelerate the development of the African Standby Force, the Rapid Response Forces, and an early warning mechanism. It should provide sustainable and predictable financing assistance to AU's peace and security operations, and support silencing the guns in Africa. The international community should respect and uphold ASEAN's centrality in East Asia cooperation. Under the current circumstances, supporting ASEAN's constructive participation in Myanmar's domestic reconciliation process in an ASEAN way and de-escalating tensions in Myanmar serves the interests of the people of Myanmar and the international community. Fourth, it is essential to pursue common development and prepare the ground for peace. For many regional hotspots, the ultimate way out lies in development. The UN and regional organizations need to fully appreciate the significance of development in promoting peace, take an integrated approach to peacekeeping, peacebuilding, and post-war reconstruction, and help countries in need access timely development funds and resources. In essence, the fulfillment of the 2030 Agenda, better lives and employment, and narrowing development gaps are the best policies for long-term peace and security. In this connection, interregional cooperation and connectivity and efforts to integrate post-conflict countries into regional development have great significance as they can bring the dividends of peace to all. Mr. President, this year marks the 50th anniversary of the restoration of China's lawful seat at the UN. Throughout the 5 decades, China has been an active supporter to and participant in the cause of the UN, and a firm defender and practitioner of the UN Charter. China has also consistently supported and actively contributed to stronger cooperation between the UN and regional and sub-regional organizations. In fact, a considerable portion of China's UN Peace and Development Trust Fund has gone to support regional and sub-regional organizations. China has announced to donate 300,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines to UN peacekeepers, with priority given to missions in Africa. We would also support it if these vaccines are to be used for peacekeeping missions by regional and sub-regional organizations. To date, China has established strategic partnerships with regional organizations, including the AU, ASEAN, and the Arab League. The partnerships are founded on our common understanding of a shared future and are consistent with the UN Charter. Guided by the principles of extensive consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits, our partnerships aim for win-win cooperation. They are never targeted against any third party. China has been promoting cooperation with the AU in the spirit of pursuing the greater good and shared interests, and according to the principle of sincerity, real results, affinity, and good faith. A few months ago, we signed the Belt and Road Cooperation Plan with the AU, and will continue to forge synergy between the Belt and Road Initiative, AU's Agenda 2063, and UN's 2030 Agenda. China supports AU's leading role in the African integration process and encourages the AU to find African solutions to African issues and make contributions to peace and development in the region. China has been pushing forward its ties with ASEAN under the principles of amity, sincerity, mutual benefit, and inclusiveness. We'll continue to work for progress on political security, economic, and social cultural fronts, support ASEAN centrality in regional cooperation, and build a closer China-ASEAN community with a shared future. China has been advancing Belt and Road cooperation with the Arab League and set out the guiding principles of peace, innovation, guidance, governance, and integration. China is a committed builder of peace, promoter of development, facilitator of industrialization, supporter of stability, and partner of people-to-people exchanges in the Middle East. We'll continue to advance economic and trade cooperation with the Arab League, enhance political trust, increase inter-civilization exchanges, and build a community with a shared future based on common convictions and pursuits, featuring tranquility and harmony, and in pursuit of development and prosperity. In view of the unprecedented changes the world is going through, China stands ready to enhance cooperation with regional organizations, work in the same direction to uphold peace together, and build a community with a shared future for mankind. Thank you.
Tôi xin cảm ơn.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Wang Yi for his statement. And as a permanent UNSC member from Asia and an active partner of ASEAN under various frameworks, China plays a key role in promoting trust building and dialogue for conflict prevention and resolution in the region and the world. Vietnam wishes to further strengthen the traditional friendship, the comprehensive strategic partnership of cooperation with China for peace, stability, and development of the region and the mutual benefits of our peoples. And next, I would like to give the floor to Excellency Mr. Marcelo Ebrard Casaubon, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Mexico, who will be speaking in his national capacity as well as representative of the Forum for East Asia-Latin America Cooperation.
Señor Presidente, México agradece al presidente de la República Socialista de Vietnam, Nguyen Xuan Phuc, por convocarnos a este debate. Agradezco las presentaciones del secretario general Guterres y del exsecretario general Ban Ki-moon. Reconozco la presencia de jefes de Estado y de Gobierno y de otros ministros. Permítame, en primer lugar, manifestar la solidaridad de México y de la comunidad de Estados latinoamericanos y caribeños con el pueblo y el gobierno de San Vicente y las Granadinas, que están atravesando una situación excepcional como resultado de las recientes erupciones volcánicas que han tenido graves efectos en la población. Reitero al señor primer ministro el apoyo de la comunidad CELAC y que a partir de esta semana estaremos enviando apoyos, medicamentos, alimentos y otros. Dicho esto, es necesario reconocer que la cooperación entre las Naciones Unidas y las organizaciones regionales es fundamental en los esfuerzos para preservar la paz y la seguridad internacional de conformidad con lo dispuesto en el capítulo 8 de la Carta. México, como país comprometido con un multilateralismo efectivo, ha favorecido los enfoques regionales de mediación y solución pacífica de controversias para atender de manera temprana los conflictos y evitar que escalen. Reconocemos que diversas organizaciones regionales y subregionales han establecido mecanismos de solución pacífica efectivos que fomentan la confianza entre las partes. En este sentido, es de subrayarse y reconocerse el esfuerzo de la Asociación de Naciones del Sudeste Asiático para encontrar una solución pacífica a la situación por la que atraviesa Myanmar. Confiamos en que con la participación activa de la ANSEA se alcance pronto una salida pacífica en Myanmar y el retorno a la normalidad democrática. Quisiera también reconocer el creciente liderazgo de la Unión Africana, sus compromisos para encontrar una solución a la preocupante situación que se vive en Tigray, o sus esfuerzos por aliviar las tensiones relacionadas con la gran presa del renacimiento etíope, son muestra clara de su capacidad y liderazgo regional. Igualmente aplaudimos a la Comisión Económica para África Occidental, cuya intervención fue fundamental para llegar a un acuerdo con miras a una transición democrática en Mali. Asimismo, hay que dar cabal crédito a la Liga de Estados Árabes por su participación constructiva en la búsqueda de soluciones a diversos conflictos en el mundo árabe y a la Organización para la Cooperación y la Seguridad en Europa, por cuanto corresponde al continente europeo. Señoras, señores, señor presidente, en los tiempos actuales, las organizaciones regionales deben desempeñar un papel central en el contexto de la actual pandemia por COVID-19 y sumar esfuerzos para lograr la instrumentación efectiva de las resoluciones 2562 del 2021 del Consejo de Seguridad y la 74/274 de la Asamblea General de las Naciones Unidas para que realmente se dé un acceso equitativo a las vacunas, se le reconozca como un bien público global y se apliquen sin exclusiones en todos los países, incluidos, por supuesto, aquellos que se encuentren en conflicto. La necesidad de hacer un frente común contra la pandemia ha generado un vigoroso impulso para la integración de América Latina y el Caribe, materializada en el marco de la Comunidad de Estados Latinoamericanos y Caribeños, de la cual México ejerce la presidencia pro tempore desde enero de 2020. Al frente de la comunidad, hemos colaborado con la CEPAL para realizar un estudio completo del impacto económico de la pandemia, muy profundo, y hemos diseñado y puesto en marcha un plan integral de autosuficiencia en vacunas y medicamentos, que no tiene precedente y que busca reforzar las cadenas de producción y distribución sanitarias en la región. La cooperación alcanzada ante la pandemia entre los países de la Comunidad de Estados Latinoamericanos y Caribeños ha permitido la instalación de una red de especialistas en virología, la producción regional de la vacuna AstraZeneca contra COVID en un esfuerzo combinado entre México y Argentina, y de manera muy importante y destacada, el impulso a proyectos para desarrollar vacunas en universidades y centros de investigación de la región, en las que están participando en etapas preclínicas o ya clínicas, vacunas desarrolladas por Argentina, Brasil, Cuba, Chile y México. Nuestro objetivo estratégico es contar con vacunas propias aprobadas para garantizar la vacunación de todos los países de la comunidad lo más pronto posible, vistas las severas restricciones que estamos enfrentando de acceso a las vacunas y que muestran una concentración increíble, sin precedentes en el acceso a las vacunas. La CELAC también ha sido espacio propicio para que los países que así lo deseen se expresen en contra de la voracidad y el acaparamiento que ha acentuado las desigualdades, los bloqueos comerciales de insumos para combatir la pandemia y la ausencia e insuficiencia de vacunas en la región. Hemos procurado que la comunidad lleve a los hechos un multilateralismo eficaz que produzca beneficios reales y concretos a nuestros pueblos y que contribuya a su desarrollo sostenible. Y digo todo esto porque las organizaciones regionales pueden subsanar o complementar los esfuerzos de la Organización de Naciones Unidas ahí donde hay límites evidentes, como es el caso de las vacunas y los medicamentos. Señor presidente, la magnitud y diversidad de las consecuencias adversas de la actual crisis sanitaria hace impostergable una reflexión profunda para revisar el carácter estratégico de las organizaciones multilaterales en la atención a los retos multidimensionales de la seguridad internacional que ponen en peligro la vida de amplios grupos de la población. Por su proximidad a la realidad de sus respectivas zonas geográficas, su experiencia y conocimiento de las dinámicas locales, las organizaciones regionales deben ser una primera instancia de prevención y atención a los posibles conflictos y las crisis que trascienden las fronteras de un país. Confiamos en que este debate, oportunamente convocado, contribuya a fortalecer los vínculos en el terreno entre lo local, lo nacional y lo regional, con todo el sistema de seguridad colectiva establecido en la Carta de las Naciones Unidas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kasabon, for your statement. I also congratulate Mexico for your achievements in national construction and development and your elevated role and status in the region and the world. Vietnam wishes to further enhance coordination with Mexico at the UNSC and multilateral mechanisms in the coming time. And next, I would like to invite Mr. Othman Jarandi, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Migration and Tunisians Abroad, to deliver your remarks.
أصحاب الفخامة والمعالي والسعادة، السيدات والسادة، يطيب لي في البداية أن أشكر السيد أنطونيو غوتيريش الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة على إحاطته القيمة بشأن دعم التواصل والتفاعل مع المنظمات الإقليمية وتعزيز دور الأمم المتحدة والعمل متعدد الأطراف. وأحيي الأمين العام السابق صديقي السيد بان كيمون الذي كان قد ساهم منذ بداية عهدته في وضع اللبنة الأولى لآليات وأطر التنسيق والتعاون بين منظمة الأمم المتحدة والمنظمات الإقليمية في مجال صون السلم والأمن الدوليين. كما أشكر فيتنام على اختيارها الصائب لهذا الموضوع الهام الذي أصبح اليوم محل اهتمام المجلس، بما يعكس الأهمية التي نوليها جميعا لتعزيز التعاون والتكامل بين منظمة الأمم المتحدة والمنظمات الإقليمية، لا سيما في مجال منع نشوب الصراعات وإدارتها وحلها في جميع مناطق العالم، وذلك عملا بالفصل 8 من ميثاق منظمة الأمم المتحدة. وقد كان لتونس في إطار رئاستها لمجلس الأمن خلال شهر جانفي 2021 شرف المبادرة بتنظيم جلسة إحاطة رفيعة المستوى حول التعاون بين مجلس الأمن وجامعة الدول العربية، وقد تميزت هذه الجلسة بمقترحات بناءة وبنقاش ثري. كما لا يسعني إلا أن أتقدم بالشكر مسبقا إلى مقدمي الإحاطات نظرا للإضافة القيمة التي سيقدمونها باعتبار تخصصهم كل في مجاله وفي المنطقة التي يشرف عليها. وقد توجت هذه الجلسة باعتماد مجلس الأمن لبيان رئاسي عكس التوافق حول ضرورة دفع التعاون بين منظمتنا الأممية والمنظمات الإقليمية للدور الهام الذي تلعبه المنظمات الإقليمية وفي المجالات السياسية والاقتصادية والتنموية، كما تعتبر ركائز أساسية في الحفاظ على الأمن والسلم ومنصة متقدمة واستباقية لنزع فتيل التوترات. كما لا يفوتني في هذا السياق أن أنوه بالجلسة التي عقدت يوم 4 ديسمبر 2020 خلال رئاسة جنوب أفريقيا حول التعاون بين منظمة الأمم المتحدة والاتحاد الإفريقي. سيد الرئيس، تنبع أهمية عقد اجتماعنا اليوم من إيماننا بضرورة تكامل دور المنظمات الإقليمية كسند لمنظمة الأمم المتحدة ومجلس الأمن في إرساء السلم والأمن الدوليين، وهو ما يستدعي تشبيك الجهود وتوحيد الرؤى وفق مقاربة دولية موحدة ومنسقة ومتكاملة. ونحن ندعو في هذا السياق إلى الارتقاء بالتعاون بين مجلس الأمن والمنظمات الإقليمية إلى مستوى أعلى من التنسيق والتعاون، بما يضفي نجاعة أكبر على معالجة مختلف الأوضاع ويساهم في تسوية النزاعات والأزمات والوقاية منها. ففي ضوء ما يشهده العالم من أزمات وتحديات أمنية واقتصادية وإنسانية وتنموية تضاعفت مع انتشار جائحة كوفيد-19، فإن المجموعة الدولية مدعوة إلى توحيد جهودها وتنسيق تحركاتها إقليميا ومحليا من أجل تسوية هذه الأزمات بما يضمن الأمن والاستقرار والسلام في العالم. سيد الرئيس، إن تونس من منطلق التزامها بخدمة الأمن والسلم الدوليين وحرصها الثابت على معالجة القضايا المطروحة في العالم، لا سيما تلك التي تواجه البلدان العربية والإفريقية، تولي أهمية خاصة للتشاور والتفاعل بين مجلس الأمن وجامعة الدول العربية والاتحاد الإفريقي، باعتبارهما أهم الفاعلين الإقليميين والأكثر قدرة على فهم خصوصيات وتعقيدات المنطقتين ومتطلبات التعامل مع أوضاعهما. ومن شأن هذا التعاون أن يساهم في الفهم المشترك للأسباب العميقة لمختلف النزاعات والأزمات التي تشهدها المنطقتين العربية والإفريقية، بما يضفي أكثر واقعية وفاعلية على مقارباتنا ومعالجتها. وبقدر ما نعرب عن ارتياحنا إلى تطور علاقات التعاون بين المنظمات الإقليمية ومنظمة الأمم المتحدة خلال العشرية الأخيرة، فإننا نؤكد اليوم كذلك على أهمية مضاعفة الجهود من أجل إحداث نقلة نوعية على هذه العلاقات لترتقي إلى مستوى أعلى من التنسيق والتكامل وتقاسم المسؤوليات. فإن المنظمات الإقليمية بحكم درايتها بالخصوصيات المحلية وفهمها لمحركات النزاعات وأسبابها العميقة ولخلفيات العلاقات بين الأطراف الفاعلة في مناطق التوتر، قادرة على لعب دور أكثر فاعلية في مجال الوساطة وبناء الثقة وتشجيع الحوار السياسي والمصالحة بين الأطراف المعنية. وفي هذا الإطار فإنه من المهم اليوم العمل باتجاه تكريس أولوية التدخل للمنظمات الإقليمية ودون الإقليمية للمساهمة في معالجة الأزمات وإيجاد حلول نابعة من المنطقة على غرار ما يسعى الاتحاد الإفريقي إلى تكريسه في عدد من المواقع. ونحن نتطلع في هذا الإطار إلى مقترحات الأمين العام في تقاريره المقبلة حول سبل تعزيز التعاون بين منظمة الأمم المتحدة والمنظمات الإقليمية في مجال بناء الثقة وتشجيع الحوار السياسي كأداة لتسوية النزاعات. سيد الرئيس، في الختام أود التأكيد أن جسامة التحديات التي يشهدها العالم والمخاطر المستجدة التي أصبحت تستهدف البشرية وتهدد أمننا الجماعي تحتم علينا اليوم مراجعة مقاربتنا للأمن والسلم الدوليين من منطلق تشاركي. ونحن ندعو في هذا السياق إلى تعزيز التعاون القائم بين منظمة الأمم المتحدة والمنظمات الإقليمية ودون الإقليمية لمعالجة التحديات المشتركة، وفي مقدمتها النزاعات والإرهاب، والعمل على تصدي لتداعيات انتشار جائحة كورونا انسجاما مع القرار رقم 2532 الذي اعتمده مجلس الأمن بالإجماع يوم 1 جويلية 2020 بمبادرة تونسية فرنسية. كما نؤكد على أن تعزيز التعاون وتفعيله بين الأمم المتحدة والمنظمات الإقليمية من شأنه أن يساعد على تعزيز الفهم المشترك للأسباب العميقة للأزمات، ويسمح باعتماد تسويات شاملة ودائمة للنزاعات القائمة ومعالجة الناجعة لأسبابها، وهو ما يعزز دور الدبلوماسية الوقائية كآلية لحفظ السلم والأمن الدوليين. وشكرا لكم السيد الرئيس.
Amen.
I thank Excellency Mr. Gerandi for his statement. As we both are developing countries and members of numerous international organizations, Vietnam and Tunisia share many common views. Our two countries also enjoy favorable conditions to strengthen our multifaceted cooperation at the UNSC and other multilateral forums to contribute to the maintenance of regional and international peace and security. And I now give the floor to Excellency Mr. Simon Coveney, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Defence of Ireland.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And can I thank Vietnam for organising today's debate, highlighting the critical need to cooperate in support of conflict prevention and resolution. And like others, can I also offer my solidarity with St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I'd like to thank Secretary General Guterres and former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who've spoken eloquently about the unique partnerships between the UN and regional organisations. I welcome the adoption of a presidential statement on this important issue. Mr. President, in Ireland, we don't have to look far beyond our own shores to see the impact of regional organisations in building and sustaining peace. From the ashes of the Second World War, the European regional experiment became a reality. Across the European neighbourhood, the contribution of regional cooperation to coherence, stability and growth is felt on a daily basis. Referring to the architects of today's European Union, Nobel Peace Laureate from Ireland, John Hume, said, "They spilt their sweat and not their blood, and by doing so broke down the barriers of distrust of centuries." This experience also informed the journey towards peace and reconciliation on the island of Ireland. Partnerships built at local, regional and international level led to and continues to underpin the success of the Good Friday Peace Agreement. Drawing on this experience and learning from the EU and other regional organisations, I would like to make 3 points today. The first is that regional organisations can bring a unique understanding to ensuring that confidence-building measures are inclusive and context-specific. Regional organisations, through their work in promoting cooperation and engagement among their members, are themselves powerful examples of confidence building. The European Union put building bridges between people at the centre of its approach to supporting peace on the island of Ireland. They literally built and funded a bridge in one of the conflict areas. The aptly named EU Peace Cross-Border Funding Programme, for example, focused on the creation of constructive human relationships across all layers of society, including survivors, young people and women's groups. Looking across the world, we see examples of regional organisations successfully applying contextual knowledge to address challenges to peace and security. Recently, this Council's informal expert group on climate and security heard about the important work of UNOWAS and ECOWAS on climate-related risk assessments in West Africa. I underline Ireland's strong support for the OSCE continuing efforts in Ukraine. The commitment of all sides to the principles of the OSCE must be upheld. By enhancing engagement with regional organisations, this Council can draw from country and thematic experience built on local understanding and expertise. This brings me to my second point, that regional organisations can and must work together in support of the UN, and that regional approaches to conflict building measures and dialogue require sustained investment over time. The EU-UN partnership is an area of peace operation. In the area of peace operations and crisis management is a good example. Just as we are committed to UN peacekeeping missions across the globe, Ireland is proud to have members of our defence forces participating in EU common security and defence policy, operations in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Mali and the Mediterranean. All these missions operate in support of UN Security Council resolutions. Irish experts are also currently serving in UN civilian CSDP missions in 8 countries. Trilateral cooperation has also proved effective in a number of cases. The EU, through Operation Althea, mandated by this Council, works closely with the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe to promote stability in the European neighbourhood. Similarly, through Operation Atalanta in Somalia, the EU operates with the UN and African Union to leverage local and international skills and experience. These strategic partnerships allow each organisation to engage more effectively and to ensure real and targeted impact on the ground, which is what really matters. The recent establishment of the European Peace Facility will enable the EU to contribute to the financing of military peace support operations and assistance measures globally. The EPF will, for example, support the increasing role in peacekeeping played by the African Union and sub-regional organisations to prevent, mediate and settle conflicts on the African continent. I also commend the African Union's efforts to increase the effectiveness of the African peace and security architecture. ASEAN, meanwhile, continues to play a key role in its region, and I welcome the recent progression to a strategic partnership between the EU and ASEAN. This demonstrates the shared commitment between our two organisations to a rules-based international order and effective multilateralism. ASEAN can and should play an important role in an issue that concerns all of us, ensuring the protection of human rights and facilitating dialogue and a peaceful solution to the current crisis in Myanmar. We look towards the upcoming ASEAN summit and are hopeful of a tangible outcome. This would be a positive manifestation of the potential of regional organisations, as the likes of which we're discussing here today. There is scope here for the strengths of the UN and ASEAN to align. My final point is that peace is made by people, by courageous individuals like Monica McWilliams and Pearl Sagar, who worked on a cross-community basis to ensure women's representation in the Northern Ireland peace process. We have learned that to be sustainable, peace must be inclusive. Regional organisations have a vital role to play in giving space to grassroots and community actors and in elevating the voices of civil society. We see the invaluable role of regional women's mediator and peace-building networks, particularly in conflict-affected contexts. Groups such as FemWise Africa and the Arab Women's Mediators Network are showing the way for all of us. There's more that we can do on this Council within UN-led peace processes and through the work of regional organisations to ensure that women are both in the room and at the table when decisions are made. We must ensure that the voices of young people, often too marginalised, are both heard and heeded. Mr. President, primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security rests with this Council. Strengthening cooperation between the UN and regional organisations enhances our ability to prevent and resolve conflict and to advance the broader goals and objectives of the UN Charter. We are, as we know, already doing much together. So let us commit to realising the full potential these unique partnerships have to offer. Thank you very much.
I thank Mr. Coveney for his statement. I hope that I very much value the speech, and I hope that our bilateral multifaceted cooperation will be further strengthened for regional and international peace, cooperation and development, and for the mutual benefits of our two peoples. And next, I give the floor to Her Excellency, Ms. Linda Thomas-Greenfield.
Thank you, Mr. President, and allow me to join others in congratulating you on your assumption as President of Vietnam and to thank Vietnam for your extraordinary leadership during this month's Security Council. Today, I'd like to offer a top-line overview of some of the world's most important regional organizations, share our views on their important work, and offer plans for coordination and collaboration. We have worked with the African Union across Africa to address many crises, from Somalia and Darfur to Ebola response in West Africa. And as you heard from the Secretary General, as well as from the President of Kenya, we continue to have many challenges on the continent. At this very moment, a strong UN-AU partnership is crucial to addressing the conflict in Tigray and the unfolding humanitarian and human rights crisis. The conflict has already caused hundreds of thousands to flee their homes. Working together with the support of the international community, the UN and AU are positioned to press for free, safe, unhindered humanitarian access, an end to violence, accountability for those responsible for human rights violations, and a peaceful solution. Confidence and security building measures are another important tool that the UN and regional organizations can use to foster cooperation and trust. The United States particularly commends the Organization of American States for its long history of using these measures across the hemisphere. They have successfully identified traditional as well as non-traditional measures that address new threats, concerns, and other challenges in the hemisphere. The OAS has helped broker agreements to resolve territorial disputes between Belize and Guatemala, Honduras and Nicaragua, as well as Costa Rica and El Salvador. The OAS has also participated in several conflict resolutions and national reconciliation activities, including disarmament and demobilization in Colombia. These confidence and security building measures have contributed to transatlantic military stability, predictability, and transparency. The OSCE's Special Monitoring Mission also plays a vital role in reporting on daily activities of violence on the ground in Ukraine. We owe it to their leadership, all of the brave monitors, and everyone with an interest in a strong European security environment to ensure the mission can operate freely and without hindrance. We also deeply appreciate the European Union's deployment of civilian and military missions in support of the UN Security Council resolutions. The EU's military training mission in the Central African Republic, Mali, and Somalia directly support UN peacekeeping efforts. We thank you for your willingness to take on these challenges inside and outside of your region. The United States also looks to regional organizations like ASEAN to play a strong role in encouraging conflict prevention, mediation, preventive diplomacy, and peace building. While the ultimate responsibility lies with the Security Council to address threats to international peace and security, this month in particular, we in the Security Council eagerly awaits the outcome of the ASEAN meeting on Burma, which deserves serious and immediate attention. ASEAN-led forums, including the ASEAN Regional Forum and East Asia Summit, provide a space for constructive dialogue between regional countries to discuss pressing regional and international issues, including good governance, counterterrorism, and maritime security. We will continue to actively engage in these forums to foster constructive engagement with Indo-Pacific countries. Through our contributions to the preventative diplomacy agenda and the ASEAN Regional Forum, we have seen great strides on the inclusion of women, youth, and civil society organizations. Increasing the meaningful participation of women in all political processes is a priority at other regional organizations too, like the OSCE. It's yet another reason to coordinate with these organizations as we do everything we can to promote support for the Women, Peace, and Security agenda here at the Security Council. Finally, we'd also like to recognize the leading role that the Pacific Island countries' regional organizations play in advancing economic development and security cooperation. Our partnership with the Pacific Island Forum enhances regional security, cooperation, and supports implementation of the UN Security Council resolutions with Pacific governments and their shipping registries. Regional organizations are essential partners in working toward peace and security. They are engines of diplomacy. We at the United Nations have to be in close contact with them to secure our success. So we look forward to continuing to coordinate and collaborate with all of these organizations as well as others in the days, weeks, and years to come. Thank you, Mr. President, for hosting this important debate.
I believe that as a permanent member of the UNSC and partners to many regional organizations, including ASEAN, the U.S. will continue to play a key role in promoting dialogue and confidence-building measures in conflict prevention and resolution in the region and beyond. Vietnam looks forward to promoting our comprehensive partnership with the U.S., contributing to peace, stability, and cooperation in the Asia-Pacific and the world. I now give the floor to His Excellency Dr. Subramanyam Jaishankar, Minister of External Affairs of India. We do apologize for the mix-up in the speaking order.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, let me convey our best wishes to Your Excellency on your election as the President of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. I also thank the Vietnamese delegation for organizing this high-level open debate on enhancing cooperation between the UN and regional and sub-regional organizations. Excellency, your chairing of today's debate has brought a special focus to this very important issue. Regional and sub-regional organizations have demonstrated their important role in the maintenance of international peace and security. With their deep knowledge of local factors and complexities, regional and sub-regional organizations are uniquely placed to contribute to finding better solutions to conflicts in their respective regions. We therefore support engagement between the UN and regional and sub-regional organizations in line with the UN Charter. Mr. President, the world order that we built following the Second World War is under serious stress. The nature of threats faced by member states when the UN was founded 75 years ago has also changed. Contemporary security challenges are not limited to territorial or political disputes, but transcend physical or political boundaries. In today's globalized world, terrorism, radicalization, drug trafficking, and organized crime have a growing salience. The security implications of new technologies cannot be disregarded. To face such diverse challenges, we need coordinated and concerted action across borders. We think that enhanced cooperation between the UN and regional and sub-regional organizations will be an important factor in successfully addressing such contemporary challenges and conflicts. In this context, a rational evaluation of the cooperation between the UN and regional and sub-regional organizations during the last 75 years will provide a good basis for our future engagements. Mr. President, India has traditionally maintained close and friendly cooperation with regional organizations. India's relationship with the ASEAN is a key pillar of its foreign policy and the foundation of its Act East policy. India's vision of the Indo-Pacific as a free, open, and inclusive region underpinned by international law and a rules-based order is premised on ASEAN centrality and the common pursuit of progress and prosperity. India remains committed to further building on the momentum of regional cooperation under the BIMSTEC framework and make that organization stronger, vibrant, and more effective and result-oriented. Our relationship with Africa spans centuries, and we have had close cooperation with the African Union, especially for development partnership initiatives. In addition to our large peacekeeping presence in Africa, India has been deeply committed to peace building and sustaining peace through large UN peacekeeping operations in Africa. Let me conclude by reiterating a strong support for cooperation between the UN and regional organizations. We believe that this partnership is inevitable for responding collectively, coherently, and decisively to effectively prevent, manage, and resolve violent conflicts and promote peace and development. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank you, His Excellency, Mr. Dr. Jaishankar, for his statement and his kind congratulations. We should further strengthen our cooperation at the UNSC to promote our traditional friendship and promote conflict prevention and resolution and reinforce regional sustainable peace. I now give the floor to His Excellency Lord Tariq Ahmad of Wimbledon, Minister of State for the Commonwealth, the United Nations and South Asia of the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Secretary General Guterres and Mr. Ban, and all of the briefers for the poignant reminders of the challenges we collectively face. As we all recognize, conflict has a devastating impact. We know it hits hardest amongst the poorest and indeed the most vulnerable. By the World Bank's reckoning, by 2030, 2/3 of the world's extreme poor could be affected by fragility, conflict, and violence. The Council's agenda, sadly, is a tragic testimony. In the last 2 weeks alone, we have discussed conflicts in Yemen, in Mali, in Syria, and the Great Lakes region, amongst others. So, Mr. President, we welcome the adoption today of a presidential statement under your leadership. We hope it will serve to strengthen confidence-building measures and indeed dialogue mechanisms with the regional, sub-regional, and importantly, civil society organizations on whom peace processes so deeply depend. I would like to highlight 3 ways that we believe we can strengthen the vital role of these organizations. First, regional and sub-regional organizations can restore trust between conflict-affected communities. In particular, the work of the OSCE's High Commissioner on National Minorities has reduced tensions and prevented conflict across the OSCE region. As regional organizations develop their technical capacity, they should seek to follow this very example. And we should seek to boost their willingness to use confidence-building measures as and when it's required. Secondly, confidence building and dialogue must be absolutely part of a broader strategy coordinated through the good offices of the United Nations. We recognize the unique role of ASEAN in addressing the crisis in Myanmar. The UK further welcomes ASEAN's readiness to support positive and constructive efforts, and therefore we look forward to the close UN-ASEAN cooperation to solve the conflict and serve those who are suffering, those who are in need. We also applaud the 2017 United Nations African Union Joint Framework for Enhanced Partnership in Peace and Security. This was indeed instrumental in the 2019 peace agreement between the government of the Central African Republic and 14 armed groups, and we call on all political actors to remain committed directly to it. Thirdly, regional bodies need to include civil society organizations in a meaningful capacity at all levels of dialogue. If we are truly to build inclusive and enduring peace, civil society bodies are pivotal in all aspects of conflict prevention and importantly also in conflict resolution. As has been said by others, including my good friend, the Foreign Minister of Ireland, it's important that women are central to peacemaking, in particular regional women's networks, such as ASEAN Women for Peace Registry and the African Union's Femwise Africa, are vital actors in the pursuit of a lasting and sustainable peace. The United Kingdom, I assure you, is absolutely committed to protecting and promoting women peace builders, and we are proud to have supported the International Civil Society Action Network's protection framework. I urge others to support and implement its expert and effective recommendations. On our shared path to peace, we need this more open and inclusive approach for a stronger and more coherent international response. The nature of conflict has changed. Increasingly, we see conflicts that are intrastate in nature, but which have the potential to destabilize peace and security on a global level. We also see how marginalization and human rights violations can totally and utterly isolate communities and indeed perpetrate violence. To tackle these complex driving forces, we must and we need to combine our humanitarian development and peace-building efforts. The Peace-Building Commission is absolutely at the heart of this, and we commend the Peace-Building Fund support, which builds trust amongst communities. Because ultimately, where national and regional efforts fail, it is the Security Council that has primary responsibility for both international peace and international security. We do that best when we have a clear view. The United Kingdom supports regular and coordinated early warning capabilities, which help the Council to prevent escalation. Regional organizations can strengthen that capability by sharing early warning assessments and bringing emerging situations to the Council's direct attention. Accurate and timely information needs to be coupled with effective early engagement and support at community, state, regional, or continental level. And where prevention activities fail, or there is no regional consensus, it is this Council that should lead the international community, not just to discuss, to debate, but to act. The United Kingdom stands ready to support regional and sub-regional organizations as they continue to strengthen confidence building and dialogue efforts. It is only by mobilizing all the tools at our collective disposal, Mr. President, that we can avoid the escalation of violence and secure the lasting, the sustainable peace that we all desire. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank His Excellency Lord Ahmed for his statement and your appreciation regarding our theme. I would like to convey my heartfelt condolences on the passing away of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. We deeply appreciate the UK's efforts in the process of conflict prevention and solution and look forward to further tightening our cooperation in this area under different frameworks. I now give the floor to His Excellency Audun Hanvoldsen, Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs of Norway.
Thank you, Mr. President, Excellencies. Let me start by joining others in congratulating you, President Quốc, with your recent assumption of office. And Norway would also like to thank Vietnam for placing today's important issue on the agenda of the Council and taking the initiative to the PRST, which we have adopted. Regional and sub-regional organizations are an integral part of the global multilateral architecture. We need more, not less, cooperation to address the global challenges that affect us all. Regional and sub-regional organizations play an important role in the prevention of conflicts, and they bring added value to conflict resolution. They are uniquely placed to build trust and to promote dialogue among concerned parties within their respective regions. Norway favors strengthened institutional cooperation between the UN Security Council and regional organizations in order to make the most of our combined resources in sustaining peace, stability, and security. Norway remains a committed, long-term partner of key regional and sub-regional organizations, in particular in the area of peacemaking and mediation, and in promoting the women, peace, and security agenda. When the crisis erupts in a particular part of the world, we, as Security Council members, look to the region for knowledge of the root causes and the dynamics of the conflicts, as well as for concrete ideas to address and resolve it. Regional organizations have the advantage of geographical proximity and strong local networks. A few examples. We support ASEAN's efforts to play a constructive role in the current dire situation in Myanmar, which poses a grave threat to regional peace and security. We believe that ASEAN is well placed to facilitate the dialogue needed to bring an end to the violence and to compel the military to restore civilian rule. The situation in and around Ukraine is another case in point. We have called on the Russian Federation to reverse its recent military deployments. The OSCE Special Monitoring Mission's presence and reporting is essential. And we urge all parties to provide the SMM unhindered access to all parts of Ukraine in accordance with its mandate. The African Union and its sub-regional organizations are key actors in preventing conflicts and building trust, dialogue, and confidence throughout the African continent. The active role of ECOWAS in promoting a peaceful transition in Mali is one of the many examples that could be mentioned. The African Union's work to address the situation in the Horn of Africa, including the conflict in Tigray and the situation on the border between Sudan and Ethiopia, is another case in point. Also here, the key lies in the region itself. And here too, we encourage continued close cooperation between the AU, including the AU Peace and Security Council, and the Security Council in the time ahead. We would like to see more information sharing, more joint discussions on mandates, as well as increased joint field visits to actively address these situations. Mr. President, regional organizations are also valuable partners in promoting key thematic priorities on the Council's agenda. In February, we called for the UN to lead by example in ensuring the full, equal, and meaningful participation of women in UN-led peace processes. This is equally important in regional and sub-regional organizations, and we encourage all our partners to place gender equality and empowerment of women high on the agenda. At the Council meeting with the League of Arab States in January, we welcomed the launch of the Arab Women Mediators Network, which promotes increased participation of women in peacebuilding and in peacekeeping. At our meeting with the OSCE in March, we stressed the need to incorporate a focus on gender equality at all levels of OSCE's work. Regional and sub-regional organizations play a crucial role in addressing the effects of climate-related security risks. We acknowledge these organizations' work and encourage the inclusion of adverse effects of climate change in regional dialogues as a means to increase stability and as entry point for cooperation and coordination. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank Mr. Hanvoldsen for his statement. We always appreciate the role and concrete efforts of Norway in promoting conflict prevention and solution, particularly in supporting the peace process in various regions, including the most needy ones. Next, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Nye Mohamed Bazoum, delivered by the representative of Nye.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, permettez-moi tout d'abord de vous adresser mes sincères remerciements à vous-même ainsi qu'à votre gouvernement pour l'organisation de cette importante réunion sur le renforcement de la coopération entre les Nations Unies et les organisations régionales et sous-régionales dans le cadre de la prévention et de la résolution des conflits. En effet, la prévention des conflits demeure une responsabilité essentielle du Conseil de sécurité, bien que l'histoire nous montre que cet organe est plus concentré sur la gestion des crises immédiates et la résolution des conflits déjà ouverts. Les nombreuses menaces modernes à la paix et à la sécurité internationale, telles que le terrorisme, les déplacements massifs de population, le changement climatique, la cybercriminalité et les crises sanitaires comme la pandémie du Covid-19 actuelle, ne peuvent être résolus par les États individuellement, mais nécessitent une action collective de la communauté internationale. Pour faire face à ces défis de manière efficace, les organisations régionales et sous-régionales et les Nations Unies sont appelées à renforcer les mesures de confiance et leur partenariat pour assurer la sécurité collective et le développement des États membres en favorisant une meilleure coordination intergouvernementale. La pandémie du Covid-19 que traverse le monde, qui mine le système de santé mondial et nos efforts communs pour maintenir la paix et la sécurité internationale, est une preuve de la pertinence, de la nécessité du multilatéralisme et de la coopération entre non seulement les organisations internationales, mais aussi entre celles-ci et les États. La valeur de l'action collective et de la solidarité se sont imposées comme un impératif catégorique pour faire face à cette pandémie et à son impact dévastateur sur les secteurs socio-économiques. Monsieur le Président, au regard de la complexité et du caractère multidimensionnel de ces défis, ainsi que de leurs manifestations multiformes selon les régions, ces nouveaux défis commandent aussi qu'à travers cette coopération, que la primauté soit donnée aux acteurs régionaux, car ces derniers disposent de mécanismes de référence adaptés permettant d'avoir une meilleure compréhension des causes profondes des conflits, ce qui leur permet de faire face aux situations auxquelles ils sont confrontés à travers la diplomatie préventive notamment. À cet égard, le rôle de médiation que joue la communauté économique des États de l'Afrique de l'Ouest est l'illustration parfaite des avantages des expériences et enseignements tirés de la coopération entre l'ONU et les organisations régionales et sous-régionales dans le renforcement des mesures de confiance et la promotion du dialogue dans la résolution des conflits ou autres situations de crise. S'agissant de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, que ce soit en matière de crise pré- ou post-électorale, de conflits multiformes et autres, la CEDEAO a su prouver son habileté à gérer des situations complexes malgré des ressources humaines et financières limitées et d'élaborer des stratégies différenciées tenant compte des menaces les plus imminentes pour la paix et la sécurité dans chacun des pays de son espace, en étroite collaboration avec le Conseil de sécurité et le Conseil de paix et de sécurité de l'Union africaine. S'agissant de l'Union africaine, je voudrais ici reconnaître les efforts consentis dans la mise en place d'une architecture de paix et de sécurité propre à l'Union africaine, conformément à la feuille de route de Lusaka. Sa réalisation donnera, à n'en point douter, tout son sens et contenu au concept des solutions africaines aux problèmes africains auxquels nous sommes tous ici attachés. Nous continuons de soutenir qu'il est important de conjuguer nos efforts en vue de redynamiser et de réformer la coopération entre nos deux organisations, tout comme la réforme du système multilatéral dans sa globalité s'avère nécessaire au regard de multiples bouleversements que le monde a connus en vue de répondre efficacement aux enjeux et défis sécuritaires du monde en général et de l'Afrique en particulier. Monsieur le Président, même s'il faut reconnaître que la coopération entre l'ONU et les organisations régionales et sous-régionales s'est accrue et développée au cours de ces dernières années, notamment en Afrique, le constat reste tout de même qu'elle est loin d'avoir atteint son plein potentiel et son plein essor. Pour cela, je voudrais formuler les observations ci-après dans la recherche de moyens de renforcer ce partenariat complémentaire entre ces institutions. Il s'agit premièrement d'établir un mécanisme de financement pérenne des opérations de paix dirigées par les organisations régionales, dont notamment l'Union africaine. Nous tenons à cet égard à remercier tous les contributeurs au Fonds pour la paix de l'Union africaine. Il s'agit ensuite de renforcer la coopération entre le Conseil et ses organisations en mettant l'accent sur une harmonisation de leurs agendas, des objectifs à atteindre au moyen des rencontres plus régulières, cela pour instaurer une coordination efficace et permanente. Il s'agit enfin de veiller à ce que les pays inscrits dans l'agenda du Conseil de sécurité ou en proie à des conflits jouent un rôle central dans les discussions et le processus de prise de décision les concernant au niveau du Conseil. Ceci est d'autant plus nécessaire pour les pays africains dans la mesure où les questions africaines constituent la majorité plutôt des sujets traités par cet organe. Pour conclure, c'est la conviction du Niger que le renforcement de la coopération entre les Nations Unies et les organisations régionales est devenue aujourd'hui une impérieuse nécessité pour apporter des réponses efficaces et adaptées aux crises et conflits auxquels le monde est confronté. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président, de votre aimable attention.
I thank the representative in Niger for his statement. Vietnam always closely follows the achievements attained by Niger and its people. On this occasion, I would like to convey the congratulations from the President of Vietnam to His Excellency Mr. Mohamed Bazoum for his recent election as President of Niger. And now give the floor to the representative of France.
Monsieur le Président, je tiens à remercier le Vietnam pour l'organisation de ce débat très important et vous féliciter encore une fois pour la présidence du Conseil de sécurité en ce mois d'avril. Monsieur le Président, nous avons plus que jamais besoin aujourd'hui d'un multilatéralisme efficace. Et pour faire face aux crises qui secouent le monde, les Nations Unies doivent travailler en coopération étroite avec les organisations régionales. C'est d'ailleurs tout le sens du chapitre 8 de la Charte qui fixe le cadre de cette coopération. Parce qu'elles sont au plus près du terrain, les organisations régionales sont les premiers témoins des crises. Elles en connaissent les racines profondes, elles savent les solutions efficaces pour les résoudre, pour les prévenir. Monsieur le Président, il n'est pas possible d'évoquer toutes les crises, mais je vais ici me concentrer sur quelques exemples actuels. En premier lieu, je voudrais évoquer l'action de l'Union européenne. Nous travaillons concrètement en collaboration avec les Nations Unies dans toutes les zones de crise. Je pense ici par exemple à l'élaboration et à la mise en œuvre du plan d'action global conjoint sur l'Iran, qu'il convient de préserver. Je pense également à la résolution de la crise libyenne, au déploiement de l'opération Irini afin de mettre en œuvre la résolution 2292 de ce Conseil. Je pense aussi au Sahel, où l'Union européenne forme les armées, forme la police locale, tandis que l'ONU joue un rôle clé dans le processus de paix et dans la protection des civils. Je souligne enfin l'action de l'Union européenne au Kosovo en matière de soutien à l'état de droit et au dialogue politique. En deuxième lieu, j'aimerais saluer le rôle joué par les organisations régionales africaines. Elles savent mettre en place des mesures rapides, des mesures adaptées dans le règlement des crises politiques, et c'est notamment le cas en Afrique de l'Ouest avec la CEDEAO. La CEDEAO a su se mobiliser l'an dernier dès le coup d'État au Mali. C'est également le cas, bien sûr, de l'Union africaine qui agit actuellement dans le cadre du conflit au Tigré ou encore en République centrafricaine en lien avec la CEEAC et la CIRGL. Pour aller plus loin, le financement des opérations africaines de paix, y compris sur contribution obligatoire de l'ONU, demeure un chantier essentiel. En troisième lieu, j'aimerais appuyer les efforts que déploie actuellement l'ASEAN pour tenter de résoudre la crise violente qui ensanglante aujourd'hui la Birmanie. Nous serons très attentifs aux résultats du prochain sommet de l'ASEAN. Je tiens également à saluer le rôle du secrétaire général et de son envoyé spécial sur le terrain, ainsi que les efforts de Ban Ki-moon dans ce dossier. En quatrième point, j'aimerais souligner le rôle très important que joue l'OSCE en ce moment, s'agissant de la situation tant dans le Donbass, à proximité de la frontière ukrainienne, et en Crimée, qui, je dois le dire, nous préoccupe vivement. L'OSCE fournit un cadre approprié afin que la Russie engage la désescalade. En cinquième lieu, je souhaite évoquer la contribution de la Ligue arabe pour faciliter tous les processus politiques, notamment en Libye, au Yémen, en Syrie, au Proche-Orient. Et en ce sens, la coopération avec ce Conseil doit être accrue. Enfin, je voudrais rendre un hommage appuyé à l'action que mène l'Organisation internationale pour la francophonie, notamment en termes d'observation électorale ou bien de dialogue politique, et c'est le cas en ce moment en Haïti. Monsieur le Président, nous sommes convaincus que l'ONU et les organisations régionales sont complémentaires. Ensemble, elles peuvent continuer à inventer un multilatéralisme proche du terrain qui produise des résultats afin de répondre aux défis de notre temps. Je vous remercie.
The representative of France for the statement. As a non-permanent member of the UNSC and founding member of numerous regional organizations, I wish that France will continue making substantive and remarkable contributions to strengthening cooperation between the UN and regional organizations. We look forward to continue working with France. Now I would like to give the floor to representative of Russian Federation.
Господин председатель, признательны президенту Социалистической Республики Вьетнам за организацию данного мероприятия. Благодарим генсекретаря ООН Антонио Гутерреша и бывшего генсекретаря ООН Пан Ги Муна за обстоятельные брифинги. Сотрудничество ООН с региональными и субрегиональными организациями является неотъемлемым элементом текущей повестки дня Совета Безопасности ООН. Выступаем за развитие такого взаимодействия на базе Устава ООН, прежде всего его главы 8, согласно которой деятельность региональных объединений должна соответствовать целям и принципам основополагающего международного документа. Сложно представить разрешение кризисных ситуаций без участия региональных и субрегиональных организаций, таких как Африканский союз, Ассоциация государств Юго-Восточной Азии, Лига арабских государств, Шанхайская организация сотрудничества, Организация договора о коллективной безопасности, Содружество независимых государств, Организация по безопасности и сотрудничеству в Европе. Исходим из того, что указанные структуры призваны дополнять усилия ООН в зоне своей ответственности и в рамках мандата. В большинстве случаев они лучше знают обстановку на Земле и должны играть ключевую роль в определении путей решения конфликтов. Хотели бы подчеркнуть, что приоритет в урегулировании споров следует отдавать мирным средствам, а для применения принудительных мер необходимо получить соответствующие полномочия от Совета Безопасности ООН. Господин председатель, принимая во внимание тот факт, что более половины вопросов повестки дня Совета Безопасности ООН приходится на Африку, естественным ходом вещей представляется дальнейшее сопряжение совместных действий ООН и Афросоюза. В этой связи приветствуем принятие в апреле 2017 года рамочного документа об укреплении партнерства двух организаций в области мира и безопасности, а также проведение ежегодных консультаций Совета Безопасности ООН и Совета мира и безопасности Африканского союза, поочередно в Аддис-Абебе и в Нью-Йорке. Полностью поддерживаем подход африканским проблемам, африканские решения. В частности, отмечаем посреднические усилия Афросоюза и ИГАД в стабилизации внутриполитической ситуации в Республике Южный Судан. Приветствуем успешное завершение совместной операции ООН и Афросоюза в Дарфуре. Внимательно следим за деятельностью в Сомали афромиротворческой операции «Амисом», которая действует в беспрецедентно тяжелых условиях. Безусловно, поддерживаем совместные силы Сахельской пятерки в борьбе с террористической угрозой в Сахаро-Сахельском субрегионе. Господин председатель, высокой оценки заслуживает сотрудничество ООН с АСЕАН. Приветствуем усилия Вьетнама, в том числе в качестве непостоянного члена Совета Безопасности, по продвижению такого взаимодействия с Советом. Рассматриваем ассоциацию в качестве одного из наиболее успешных интеграционных объединений и важного фактора обеспечения мира и стабильности в Азиатско-Тихоокеанском регионе. Выступаем за укрепление центральной роли «десятки» в региональных делах. В этой связи отмечаем подготовку АСЕАН к проведению внеочередного саммита и надеемся на достижение осязаемых результатов. Видим хороший потенциал взаимодействия между АСЕАН и ШОС в рамках ООН. С учетом того, что обе организации решают во многом схожие задачи по обеспечению безопасности и устойчивого развития в Азии, полагаем важным углубление диалога и практического сотрудничества. целесообразно было бы рассмотреть возможность проведения на ООНовской площадке специальной встречи высокого уровня в формате ASEAN-ШОС по вопросам безопасности. Кроме того, хотели бы отдельно дать высокую оценку сложившемуся уровню партнерства между ООН и ШОС. Рассчитываем на дальнейшее расширение многопрофильных связей между двумя организациями, сохранение и продолжение традиции участия руководства ООН в ключевых ШОСовских мероприятиях. Господин председатель, положительно оцениваем взаимодействие стран Организации договора о коллективной безопасности на площадке ООН. Традиционно выступаем за наращивание сотрудничества Организации СОДКБ на миротворческом треке. Подтверждаем готовность создавать условия для практического подключения ОДКБ к операциям ООН по поддержанию мира. Кроме того, отмечаем важность взаимодействия ОДКБ с региональными организациями и структурами на основе уважения принципов невмешательства во внутренние дела, отказа от конфронтации и конфликтов, разрешения международных споров мирными средствами. Большое значение придаем укреплению конструктивного взаимодействия между ООН и Содружеством независимых государств. Деятельность организации призвана и далее способствовать принятию решений на международной площадке, демонстрирующих нашу общую приверженность целям и принципам Устава ООН. Российская Федерация последовательно выступает за укрепление сотрудничества между ООН и ОБСЕ на базе главы 8 Устава ООН и Декларации Постсовета ОБСЕ о сотрудничестве с ООН от 2006 года. Перед этой организацией стоят сложнейшие задачи в области урегулирования внутриукраинского конфликта, содействия решению Нагорно-Карабахской проблемы, придания нового импульса переговорам в формате 5+2 по Приднестровью и многие другие. Надеемся, что ОБСЕ продолжит выполнять роль честного брокера. Сделанные же в начале сегодняшней видеоконференции неуместные реплики эстонских коллег, которые, похоже, примеряют кафтан главного русофоба в ЕС, мы оставим без внимания. В заключение хотели бы подчеркнуть, что Российская Федерация является последовательным сторонником полноценного сотрудничества с региональными организациями во всем мире. Исходим из того, что они могут и должны играть заметную роль в становлении многосторонности в качестве системы, образующей основы международных отношений, а также в развитии подлинно равноправных и партнерских отношений между странами. Я благодарю вас, господин председатель.
The representative from the Russian Federation for your remark and kind words for Vietnam. As one of the founding members of the UN and regional organizations, the Russian Federation plays an important role in strengthening relationship between the UN and regional organizations in preventing conflict and resolution. Vietnam wishes to maintain its traditional friendship and strategic comprehensive partnership with the Russian Federation. I would like to call upon His Excellency Mr. Dato Ariwan Pehin Yusof, Second Foreign Minister of Brunei Darussalam, as Chair of ASEAN.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. His Excellency Nguyen Xuan Phuc, President of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam and President of the United Nations Security Council, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, distinguished members of the United Nations Security Council, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a good evening from Brunei Darussalam. I'm very pleased to be able to participate at this open debate today on behalf of Brunei Darussalam as the chair of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations for the year 2021. At the outset, I wish to convey our appreciation to Vietnam for inviting Brunei to this open debate and congratulate Vietnam on its initiatives as President of the UN Security Council this month. I would also like to take this opportunity to convey to you, Mr. President, my warm congratulations on your recent appointment as President of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Mr. President, Excellencies, Brunei is pleased to speak to the Council alongside other chairs of regional organizations about our cooperation with the United Nations in enhancing confidence building and dialogue in conflict prevention and resolution. For us in Southeast Asia, it is an important year with many challenges as we look to swiftly recover from COVID-19, advance towards our shared goals in the ASEAN Community Vision 2025, and contend with regional developments of shared concerns. However, it is during such times that we in ASEAN have learned to truly value the benefits derived from over 50 years of community building efforts that foster confidence, trust, and unity in our region. In this regard, Brunei has chosen the theme of We Care, We Prepare, We Prosper, where we will focus on harnessing the caring nature of our people, preparing ASEAN for the future, and enabling sustainable prosperity in a resilient region. Essentially, we are striving to overcome challenges together, find new opportunities for the region, and build our collective resilience to future uncertainties. Mr. President, ASEAN has withstood the test of time and over the years has touched millions of lives, lifting many out of poverty and ushering in decades of prosperity, development, and peace. Much of this was achieved due to continuous engagement and dialogue between ASEAN member states at all levels. The UN has played an important role in ASEAN's history, particularly by supporting our work to prevent conflicts through preventive diplomacy and confidence-building measures. An example of this was through peace building between Indonesia and Timor-Leste. Indeed, such situations have occurred on numerous occasions in our region and demonstrate the necessity for close and coordinated ASEAN-UN efforts in tandem to realize the shared goal of peace and stability. It is my sincere wish that similar close cooperation with the UN can continue, especially as we look at the current developments in one of our ASEAN member states, namely Myanmar. On ASEAN's part, we have called on all parties concerned to seek a peaceful solution and pursue constructive dialogue, reconciliation, and the return to normalcy in accordance with the will and interests of the people of Myanmar. ASEAN is ready to assist Myanmar, including through the good offices of the Chair of ASEAN and the Secretary General of ASEAN, in a positive, peaceful, and constructive manner. In this regard, the ASEAN foreign ministers have already held an informal meeting on the 2nd of March. Next, the ASEAN leaders will be meeting before the end of April to further discuss how ASEAN can be of assistance to return peace and stability in Myanmar. We hope that the UN and all its member states can also continue to support ASEAN in this work. Mr. President, ASEAN's work with the United Nations is robust, wide-ranging, and comprehensive as articulated in the ASEAN-UN Plan of Action 2021 to 2025. We also have secretariat-to-secretariat cooperation as well as a roadmap to guide joint efforts on realizing complementarities between the ASEAN Community Vision 2025 and the Sustainable Development Goals. Looking to the future, there is much potential for ASEAN-UN cooperation to further support confidence-building measures and conflict prevention in the region. However, as all regions are unique in their own way, allow me to highlight key areas where ASEAN and the UN can place greater emphasis to achieve shared benefits. In keeping the region safe and secure, ASEAN, with the support of the UN, can continue to promote and uphold the rule of law and a rules-based regional architecture with ASEAN at its center. It is vital for countries to strengthen multilateral cooperation to effectively address current as well as emerging global and regional challenges of common concern and pursue areas of mutual interest. Among others, these include upholding the Charter of the United Nations, the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, a rules-based multilateral trading system with the WTO at its center, and commitments to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement to maintain peace, stability, and continued prosperity. ASEAN's ability to overcome challenges comes from its shared commitment to engage in dialogue and cooperation with its partners. This is why, under our chairmanship, Brunei has proposed a leaders' declaration on upholding multilateralism. We hope this can be an inspiration for all to reaffirm the importance of upholding multilateralism for the overall benefit of our peoples, as well as ensure the continuity of peace and prosperity. We must not only recognize that global problems require global solutions, but also act on it. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown us just how interconnected the world we live in is, and how no country can face such challenges alone. Its impact have cut across all facets of life, affecting our socio-economic development, whilst also exacerbating non-traditional security threats such as cyber threats and poverty. Amidst the uncertainties that the pandemic has brought, our people, especially youth, have become more vulnerable as they feel the weight of its impact more immensely, ranging from loss of jobs to mental health issues. And with these vulnerabilities, it opens up more opportunities for them to be exploited and influenced by extremist groups and radicals, and possibly even be recruited to carry out their work. In this regard, it is important for countries to work together to ensure they do not feel disillusioned or isolated in order to prevent such threats from happening. Specifically on mental health, ASEAN aims to leverage on the experience of its external partners in addressing this issue, especially as we observe the psychological toll that multiple quarantines, restricted movements, as well as lockdowns have had on the mental health of people due to the pandemic. Therefore, under the ambit of the East Asia Summit this year, Brunei is proposing an EAS Leaders Statement on Mental Health Cooperation, and will also convene an EAS workshop on mental health to promote regional awareness and cooperation on this issue. With over half of ASEAN's population being under the age of 30, we are seeing the emergence of a new generation who recognize the value of peace within communities and between countries. Looking ahead, under the ASEAN Regional Forum, or ARF, Brunei will place greater emphasis on the role of the youth in the future maintenance of peace and security. Therefore, we are planning to issue a joint statement on the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda at the ASEAN Regional Forum this August, and convene a workshop on the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda later in the year, which we hope will be supported by the UN experts. The involvement of the youth today will help ensure that we build confidence in the future and have people that are always ready to engage in dialogue and not conflict. Mr. President, Excellencies, Over the years, much has been said about ASEAN, even some calling ASEAN a non-stop talk shop. Nevertheless, this has not stopped us from communicating or talking with one another. In fact, ASEAN's strongest attribute is that it is able to provide an inclusive platform for all to discuss issues of common interest and concern. It is when people stop communicating or talking that misunderstanding and conflicts can arise. We must not and cannot underestimate the importance of continued and measured dialogue. This is why ASEAN will continue to engage each other and with all its partners positively and in good faith to continue strengthening its collaboration across all sectors for global peace and stability. We hope that our work during our chairmanship year will take this forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
Tôi xin cảm ơn ngài.
Thank you, His Excellency, for his statement and his kind congratulations. I wish Brunei Darussalam every success in its term as chair of ASEAN to continue to promote the ties between ASEAN and the United Nations. Now, call upon Ms. Anne Lin, Chairperson in Office of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Sweden.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, Excellencies, thank you for inviting me to speak at the Security Council today. As underlined in the UN 75 Declaration, regional organization plays a crucial role in prevention and resolution of conflicts and peace building. They are often the first to identify risks of potential conflicts and systematic human rights violations. They bring on an important understanding of the issues at stake. Building on the experience from Sweden's tenure in the Security Council in 2017 to 2018, and in line with our long-standing commitment to multilateralism and a rule-based international order built on international law, as chairperson of the OSCE, I want to further strengthen the partnership between the OSCE and the United Nations. Our focus as chair is firmly on the OSCE principles and joint commitments, as enshrined in the Helsinki Final Act and the Charter of Paris, and underpinned by international law and the Charter of the United Nations. Upholding them is shared responsibility and should be in the interest of all states in the OSCE, as they contain the elements needed to resolve conflicts and avoid further crisis. The Women, Peace and Security agenda remains a key priority for both the UN and the OSCE. To build confidence in peace efforts, we need to ensure women a meaningful participation in a political and conflict-related process. To colleagues on the Council, this is an area where we need to change. As we committed to do in the UN at 75, we have to place women and girls at center. Mr. President, the OSCE concept of a comprehensive security acknowledges that security has a political, military, economic, environmental, and human dimension. The shared commitment of the 57 participating states of the OSCE on respect for international law, human rights law, and democracy and the rule of law is central to maintaining lasting security and building confidence within and between states. The Vienna document and the Treaty on the Open Sky enable transparency and confidence building between participating states. This month, the value of the Vienna document for military risk reduction was illustrated when its consultation and cooperation as regard unusual military activities was activated by Ukraine to seek information from the Russian Federation. This mechanism is an example of the value of active confidence building through transparent exchanges. It is a mechanism that all participating states have agreed to apply. Mr. President, the OSCE Autonomous Institution, the Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, the Representative for Freedom of the Media, and the High Commissioner on National Minorities all play important roles relating to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Their confidence-building, monitoring, and reporting efforts are not just directed at state actors, but also between civil society, communities, people, and governments. The COVID-19 pandemic further stresses the need for such confidence-building measures. In this regard, we welcome the Secretary-General's call for a global ceasefire and the adoption and implementation of the UN Security Council Resolution 2532 and 2565, which are key to avoiding exacerbation of conflicts as a consequence of the pandemic. Mr. President, close cooperation with UN and the OSCE in field presence is crucial. They assist host countries in putting OSCE commitments and principles into practice and fostering local capabilities, thereby contributing to early warning and conflict prevention. In the visits I have made as chair in office, I have seen first-hand examples of the difference that our cooperations make on the ground. Our largest field operation, SMM, Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine, with more than 700 people, enjoys a close working relationship with the UN agencies present in the country, in this case particularly related to the humanitarian and human rights situation, as well as gender equality. The Geneva International Discussions, which addresses the situation following the 2008 armed conflict in Georgia, is another example of UN and OSCE collaboration to promote dialogue and confidence building. In this framework, the UN and the OSCE, together with the EU, co-chair a dialogue and de-escalation mechanism that has maintained dialogue, forestaled the re-emergence of armed hostilities, and kept vital focus on conflict-affected populations on the ground, not least through the Women, Peace and Security agenda. Mr. President, listening to the discussion today, we are reminded that regional and sub-regional organizations are crucial partners to the UN in preventing conflicts. Here, you can count on the OSCE continued close cooperation with the UN in achieving our common objectives. Thank you very much.
I thank Madame Linder for your statement. I am deeply impressed with the efforts of the Organizations for Security and Cooperation in conflict prevention and resolution and early warnings, particularly specific measures such as promoting dialogues, mediation, and confidence building among societies and communities affected by conflicts. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Ahmed Abu Ghaid, Secretary General of the Arab League.
سيد الرئيس، اسمحوا لي بداية سيادة الرئيس أن أتقدم إليكم بخالص الشكر على دعوتكم الكريمة لجامعة الدول العربية للمشاركة مع المجلس الموقر في هذه الجلسة، ورئاستكم الشخصية لهذا النقاش الذي أثق في أن خلاصاته ستساهم في تمتين التعاون بين الأمم المتحدة ومنظماتنا الإقليمية صونا للسلم والأمن الدولي على النحو الذي ينظمه الفصل الثامن من الميثاق. إننا نقدر عاليا كل جهد يرمي إلى الارتقاء بمستوى هذه العلاقة، ونثمن كل نشاط مخلص يقر ويدفع بمفهوم العمل التكاملي بين الأمم المتحدة والمنظمات الإقليمية المعنية بالحفاظ على السلم والأمن في مناطقها الجغرافية، بما في ذلك جامعة الدول العربية. وتنعقد جلسة اليوم في أعقاب الجلسة الأخرى رفيعة المستوى التي ترأستها الجمهورية التونسية في يناير الماضي بخصوص التعاون بين المجلس والجامعة العربية، كما تأتي متابعة للحوار الذي استضافه السيد السكرتير العام في نوفمبر الماضي مع رؤساء المنظمات الإقليمية، والذي نشكره على جهوده المخلصة في دفع أجندة السلام والاستقرار والتنمية في مختلف أرجاء العالم بما في ذلك المنطقة العربية. إننا نجتمع اليوم وسط أجندة مشتركة مليئة بالأزمات ومثقلة بالتحديات، وهي أجندة ازدادت تعقيدا بسبب تفشي جائحة كورونا على النحو الذي أشار إليه الكثير من المتحدثين قبلي. في هذه الظروف الاستثنائية فرضت أعباء هائلة على دولنا ومجتمعاتنا، وأضرت كثيرا بحالة الأمن والاستقرار في العديد من المواقع الهشة أصلا أو المعرضة للاضطراب. لقد جاءت الجائحة لتضرب منطقتنا العربية المثقلة أصلا بالحروب والنزاعات المسلحة واللاجئين والنازحين داخليا، وغيرها من التحديات الهيكلية التي تمس أمن واستقرار العديد من دولها، وهو ما يستوجب علينا جميعا أن نضاعف من جهدنا وعملنا التكاملي في سبيل معالجة جذور هذه الأزمات ووضع حد للقتال الذي يمزق النسيج المجتمعي في الدول الواقعة في الصراع، فضلا عن تعظيم التضامن الدولي للتعامل مع تداعيات الجائحة وكل ما خلفته من خسائر بشرية واقتصادية واجتماعية. إننا ندعو مجلس الأمن وأجهزة الأمم المتحدة الأخرى المعنية إلى إقامة شراكة عمل استراتيجية مع الجامعة العربية ودولها الأعضاء بغية إرساء دعائم الأمن والاستقرار والتنمية المستدامة في المنطقة العربية، انطلاقا من فهمنا الأصيل للمشكلات التي تعاني منها هذه المنطقة، وتأسيسا على المسؤولية الأساسية التي تتحملها المنظومة الأممية في مجال حفظ السلم والأمن الدوليين. سيد الرئيس، لقد دخلت الحرب في سوريا عامها العاشر، وتستمر معاناة الشعب السوري جراء القتال واللجوء والنزوح والتدخلات الخارجية والإقليمية غير المسبوقة في هذا البلد العربي المهم. ونعي جميعا أن فرص إخراج سوريا من هذه الدوامة المفزعة من الصراع سوف تظل تتآكل مع مرور الوقت، وأن تكلفة إعادة إعمار ما دمرته الحرب سوف تزداد يوما بعد يوم، وأن مخاطر امتداد الاضطراب إلى دول الجوار ستبقى قائمة ما لم يتم التوصل إلى تسوية سياسية جذرية ومتكاملة لهذه الأزمة. كما يعاني الشعب اليمني من مأساة إنسانية أصبحت الأكبر على مستوى العالم بسبب تعنت جماعة الحوثي ورفضها كل محاولات التسوية التي قدمت على مدار السنوات الماضية، وآخرها المبادرة السعودية المدعومة عربيا، ونتيجة للتدخلات الإقليمية التي جعلت من اليمن منصة لتهديد أمن جيرانها في الخليج ومرافق الطاقة والممرات البحرية في المنطقة. إننا نشعر في المقابل بقدر من التفاؤل نتيجة للتطورات الإيجابية في الملف الليبي منذ التوقيع على اتفاق وقف إطلاق النار واختيار السلطة التنفيذية الجديدة والاستقرار على موعد الانتخابات الوطنية نهاية العام الجاري. وأثق أنه يمكن لنا بذل مزيد من الجهود المشتركة لمرافقة الأشقاء الليبيين في هذه المسيرة عبر عملنا المتناسق مع البعثة الأممية، وأيضا من خلال المجموعة الرباعية التي سأتشرف بالدعوة إلى اجتماع لها باكر على مستوى قيادات الأمم المتحدة والجامعة العربية والاتحادين الإفريقي والأوروبي. ولا يفوتني أن أجدد التزام الجامعة العربية بدعم جهود الأمن والاستقرار والتعافي في الصومال ودفع كل ما يفضي إلى إخراج البلاد من الوضع السياسي الذي تمر به. كما نتطلع إلى الارتقاء بعملنا المشترك مع المجلس لدعم عملية الانتقال المهمة في السودان وتثبيت اتفاق جوبا للسلام بين الحكومة والحركات المسلحة. أما القضية الفلسطينية سيادة الرئيس فهي ستظل وقبل كل شيء تحتل الأولوية بالنسبة للجامعة العربية وأجندة العمل العربي المشترك. ولا يسعني هنا سوى أن أؤكد على المسؤولية الأصيلة لهذا المجلس في التوصل إلى سلام عادل للصراع الفلسطيني الإسرائيلي قبل الارتكاز على حل الدولتين وإنفاذ كافة القرارات التي سبق أن اعتمدها المجلس نفسه بإنهاء الاحتلال الإسرائيلي للأراضي الفلسطينية ورفض الأنشطة الاستيطانية التي تعتبر كلها مدانة ومخالفة للقوانين الدولية وإعادة العملية السياسية إلى مسارها المنشود لفتح الأفق أمام الفلسطينيين نحو الحرية والاستقلال. سيد الرئيس، أود في الختام أن أجدد تقديرنا لمبادرتكم بتنظيم هذه الجلسة وأن أعبر عن ترحيبنا الكامل بالبيان الرئاسي الذي توافق المجلس عليه بخصوص تعظيم العمل المشترك مع المنظمات الإقليمية، وهو المنهج الذي ستظل الجامعة تلتزم بدفعه في معالجتها للأزمات والقضايا المدرجة على هذه الأجندة المشتركة. شكرا سيادة الرئيس.
Thank you very much. The representative of Arab League, and we highly appreciate the Arab League's effort over the years in confidence building, strengthening peace and stability in the Middle East. On the occasion of the month of Ramadan, allow me to extend to you, Mr. Secretary General and all Muslims, the wish of happy Ramadan Kareem. I now give the floor to Mr. Olof Skog, head of the delegation of the European Union to the United Nations, to deliver the message of the President of the European Council.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to congratulate you and Vietnam for organizing this important debate. And thank you particularly for the invitation to the President of the European Council, His Excellency Charles Michel, to brief the meeting. He was unfortunately not able to be here today, but I will deliver the following statement on his behalf. Mr. President, the EU is a strong proponent of an effective multilateral system with the UN at its center. We believe that everyone is best served by a rules-based international order where international law and international humanitarian law is upheld, human rights in all their dimensions are respected, and where conflicts are resolved peacefully through dialogue and diplomacy. In this spirit, and as we speak, we are facilitating talks in Vienna on the JCPOA on Iran's nuclear dossier. Mr. President, everything we do is in close cooperation with and always reinforcing the mission and the objective of the United Nations and its charter. I want to pay tribute to all regional organizations represented here today and say how much we appreciate our cooperation. Regional organizations and sub-regional organizations play a unique role in preventing and resolving conflict. With cultural proximity, strong networks with the parties to a conflict, and in many cases, legitimacy based on cooperation, trust, and confidence, the regional organizations are uniquely placed to catch early warning signs and add value in mediation. I want to echo the words of the Secretary General this morning as to Myanmar and the crisis caused and driven by the military leadership there, and give our strong support to ASEAN in its efforts. Mr. President, the very foundation of the European Union grew out of efforts to overcome division and promote peace on our own continent. We have 64 years of finding and building consensus. And to match new realities and to raise our level of ambition globally, the EU adopted a new concept on EU peace mediation at the end of last year. It provides a solid basis for reinforcing our mediation efforts in support of multilateral and regional responses to crisis, drawing on the EU's diplomatic reach and multifaceted presence around the world. Many of our efforts, such as training and stabilization missions, in addition to financial support, including to AMISOM, has been referred to by others today. I'm honored to share some further examples of our work, looking first to the Western Balkans. In the context of the EU-facilitated dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina, we have come a long way over the last decade. Bringing the two parties together through dialogue, we have now arrived at a stage where the EU is working with the parties to finally conclude this process. In the EU's eastern neighborhood, the recent hostilities in Nagorno-Karabakh have highlighted the urgency to dedicate serious efforts and attention to so-called protracted conflicts. We've been reminded that protracted animosity is not synonymous with genuine peace. Continued confidence building and dialogue efforts are essential. This is why the EU is undertaking complementary stabilization and peace-building actions to restore trust throughout our neighborhood in cooperation with regional and international partners. In Georgia, since the 2008 EU brokered agreement, the EU has steered and co-chaired with the UN and the OSCE the Geneva International Discussions, a unique dialogue mechanism involving Georgia, Russia, the US, as well as the de facto authorities of Abkhazia and South Ossetia. These efforts are complemented by the EU monitoring mission present on the ground since 2008, ensuring daily monitoring of the administrative boundary lines and holding regular incident prevention and response mechanism meetings on both sides, improving living conditions and contacts between people across the dividing lines. In Ukraine, the EU, together with its member states, is the biggest contributors to the OSCE's special monitoring mission, monitoring the implementation of the Minsk agreements. The EU also assists the Ukrainian National Platform on Dialogue for Peace and Secure Integration Support, which enables exchanges on national unity and transitional justice. Building on this experience, the EU is actively supporting peace processes around the world, from Yemen and Syria to the Central African Republic and Mali, to Colombia and Venezuela and Bolivia, where the EU has been actively working through the International Contact Group to create conditions for a peaceful and democratic solution. The EU is a partner of the Middle East Quartet and closely involved in the Libya Quartet, which in itself is an illustration of the important role that regional organizations can play, bringing together the UN, the African Union, the League of Arab States, and the European Union. With Operation Irini, the EU is the only international actor monitoring the UN arms embargo. Let me close by stressing how the success of any efforts to build confidence through dialogue is dependent on their inclusivity. Regional actors have a particularly important role to play in making sure that the voices of all groups in society, including women and youth, are listened to and taken into account in the interests of achieving sustainable peace. I thank you very much again, Mr. President.
I thank His Excellency Mr. Skov for his important statement. The EU has strived to become a regional organization with the highest level of integration and on a largest scale. I believe that other regional organizations, including ASEAN, can learn from the EU's experience in confidence building, conflict prevention, and resolution. I now give the floor to Madame Fatima Kiara Mohammed, Ambassador Permanent Observer of the African Union to the United Nations.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the chairperson of the African Union Commission, who unfortunately could not join because of prior engagements, I wish to extend my appreciation to the Socialist Republic of Vietnam for organizing this timely high-level open debate and for bringing together representatives of regional and sub-regional organizations to discuss our cooperation in enhancing confidence building and dialogue in conflict prevention and resolution. I also take this opportunity to express my very best wishes to His Excellency President Nguyen Xuan Phuc, President of the Council, for a successful term in leading the Honorable Council, and also permit me to extend our solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the St. Vincent and Grenadines and pray that they will be able to quickly recover from this tragedy. Mr. President, I would also like to thank our briefers, Secretary General Antonio Guterres and former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, for their briefings. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, given the complexities of the challenges we have faced with the ongoing global pandemic, it is even more crucial for us to identify how we can improve our cooperation through stronger multilateralism and confront our shared threats with global, coordinated, and united voice and common action. Since the signing by His Excellency Moussa Faki Mohammed, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, and His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United States, of the Joint Framework for Enhanced Partnership in Peace and Security in 2017, and the subsequent framework on development, the institutionalization of joint efforts between the UN and the African Union has been strengthened. These mechanisms and legal frameworks have indeed helped us to enhance our cooperation and collaboration to the extent that today consultation and coordination between the AU, regional economic communities and regional mechanisms, and the UN to harmonize strategies and approaches have become the rule rather than the exception. This has enabled us to move from an ad hoc approach to a more structured and predictable one. With the relevant frameworks in place, we have effectively addressed in many cases the complex peace and security challenges in Africa. Our enhanced partnership continues to be anchored on the principles of subsidiarity, complementarity, and comparative advantages. Africa has achieved important milestones towards realizing the objectives of the AU flagship initiative, Silencing the Guns, creating conducive conditions for Africa's development, in line with the vision of the AU Agenda 2063 and 2030 UN Agenda for Sustainable Development. The African Union has prioritized deepening cooperation with regional economic communities and regional mechanisms on regional peace and security issues. Sustained efforts at the national, regional, and continental levels have continued to be deployed in an attempt to address the fundamental root causes of violent conflicts. We have increased operational cooperation and coordination by working in support of peace processes in Sudan, Mali, the Central African Republic, Darfur, and Somalia. Furthermore, our organizations continue to work to support free, fair, and credible electoral processes, strengthen good governance, promote the protection of human rights, and prevent electoral violence across the continent. We will continue to foster national cohesion and inclusive political and electoral processes. Increasing incidences of violent extremism, particularly in the Sahel and the Lake Chad Basin, Somalia, and more recently, Cabo Delgado in Mozambique, have called for the need for enhanced cooperation between the UN and the AU mechanisms and regional bodies in our fight against the growing threat of terrorism and violent extremism. In this regard, the AU has underscored the importance of sharing experiences and best practices, as well as lessons arising from continental and regional mechanisms deployed against terrorism, violent extremism, and other related transnational organized crime. An overview in all regions, in the Sahel in particular, shows every day massive killings of innocent women and children. Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, northern Nigeria face awful scenes of devastation. It is imperative that these countries benefit from a genuine, active, and efficient solidarity. The UN Security Council has here a fundamental responsibility. The African Union has huge hopes that it undertake urgently appropriate measures to alleviate millions of people exposed to daily massacres. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council, one of the key challenges facing the AU-UN partnership has to do with the UN-mandated AU-led peace support operations and the growing need to provide a sense of ownership to the African member states of the UN. The UN Security Council should create the opportunity and a dispensation that will allow Africa to access predictable funding from UN-assessed contributions. Though significant progress has been made between the AU and the UN at the highest level, challenges remain at the level of cooperation between the two councils. While increased efforts of engagement between the AUPSC and the UNSC have helped organizations achieve greater strategic convergence on issues that are of mutual importance, much more needs to be done. Almost 70% of the agenda of the Security Council pertains to issues of peace and security in Africa. African states comprise nearly 28% of the UN's overall membership, providing significant regional political backing to the A3 members, presently comprised of Tunisia, Niger, and Kenya. The role of the A3 is to reflect and defend the views and concerns of the continent and the decisions of the AUPSC in the UN Security Council. It is therefore important to strengthen and unify the roles played by the A3 in channeling the AUPSC provided positions on peace and security issues in Africa and enhanced the coordination between positions taken in Addis Ababa and New York. Lack of clarity on how to operationalize the principles of non-interference and subsidiarity continue to inhibit the AU's ability to respond to and intervene in emerging crises across the continent. Member states continue to invoke the principle of non-interference on the basis of sovereignty, limiting the ability of the AU to address or prevent conflicts in a timely manner. The principle of subsidiarity, on the other hand, recognizes the primacy of regional organizations in leading interventions in member states, and the continued clarity around these two principles has posed a critical challenge to coordination between the UN, AU, and regional economic communities and regional mechanisms. Finally, Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council, I wish to conclude by thanking once again the Socialist Republic of Vietnam for convening this important meeting and calling upon the AU and the UN, together with other multilateral and regional organizations, to bolster our efforts aimed at sharpening our understanding of the challenges we collectively face and enhancing our partnership and collaboration to respond to these shared threats. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the representative of the African Union for the speech. I believe that the partnership between the UN and the African Union in peace and security is exemplary for other regional organizations in strengthening peace. I would like to take this opportunity to affirm our wish to soon establish official relations with the African Union, which will enable us to foster multifaceted cooperation. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. In closing, I would like to thank all distinguished participants who made their time to join this open debate. I would also like to thank the member states and regional groups which have so far submitted written statements on the subject of today's discussion. Statements that are received by the end of today will form part of the compilation of statements from this meeting, and we look forward to receiving. I believe we have had a very candid and insightful discussion in which many valuable recommendations, comments, and experiences are shared. Our debate today demonstrates our commitment and determination to join hands and contribute to global and regional efforts towards our common goal of building trust, enhancing dialogue for conflict prevention and resolution, and fostering sustainable peace for all nations. I thank all heads of state and government, ministers, high-level representatives, briefers, technical staff, and interpreters who made this meeting a fruitful discussion and success. The